From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are the Council of the Blurs. Blurred powers unite. Engage. From the far corners of the fandom universe, representing film, comics, and anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and cosplay, they come together for one cause: to geek out. They are...
Alright, here we go. Probably should have adjusted that, so let's just fix that. Make that a little bit smaller, and alright, we are good to go. And what is going on, ladies and gentlemen, I am, of course, Kendrick Grey, the Dreadlock Blurred, and welcome back to another episode of Council of the Blurreds. Tonight's going to be a pretty special one. As we talked about last week, we are going to be reviewing everything dealing with the Mortal Kombat franchise. That includes video games, movies, comics, TV shows, whatever else can tie into the franchise. We're going to be talking about it and, of course, giving our review on it. As you can see, we have a special guest. My boy EJ jumped in on this podcast, so I want to thank him for coming through.
Hey, what's up, everyone who's listening?
Kim will not be joining us tonight. She's not feeling too well, so she'll be back with us. Hopefully, next time with the next show, she'll be back with us. And of course, HB Gibson will be joining us in a little bit. He had to go take care of something, so he should be in soon. But I'm, of course, joined by my fiance, Katanni. She's here.
Hey guys.
And as you can see, we are going Avatar tonight. We are not going live on camera. We decided to just use our avatars for the night because, yeah,
we're feeling all that great right now.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, but our avatars look awesome, and we kind of wanted a reason to showcase those things a little bit more. So once in a while, we'll bust out the avatars on the screen so you guys can have those to look at. So enjoy them while you're here. Of course, all the shameless plugs. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you are watching us, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching us on Facebook, thanks for being a friend. Be sure to go like the actual page for the Council of the Blurreds. If you can make your way over to our Twitch channel, that would be great, because as we mentioned before in the last show, heading in a few weeks or so, we are going to be doing all of our lives on Twitch, with all of our highlights from our live stream showing up on the YouTube channel. Throughout the week, you can catch highlights from our last show that we did last weekend. So definitely, if you have a Twitch account, definitely find us on Twitch. It is everything's in the description box below, of course, so you'll definitely be able to find us there, so it won't be too hard. So you can do those things. Not to mention, you can check us out on Instagram. We try to be a little bit more active there. We try to give you a glimpse into what our next show is going to be about on the podcast. So there's that to consider. And of course, all audio will be up on Anchor and podcast streaming services later on in the week as well. So be on the lookout for that if you have a podcast streaming service that you subscribe to, specifically Spotify, because we are on Spotify as well. So if you have Spotify, you can definitely give us a like and a subscribe, and you can follow us there when we drop a new show. All that being said, we're going to jump right into the show. As we talked about last week, because we plan on doing a live watch party of the Mortal Kombat movie coming out this Friday on HBO Max and in theaters, we will be doing a live watch party here on Twitch. We wanted to prepare for that by going through everything dealing with the Mortal Kombat franchise up until this point. Now, the Mortal Kombat franchise has been in existence since 1992. And needless to say, it's definitely had its ups and it's definitely had its downs. But within the past, I'd say maybe within the past 10 years, it's definitely come back into prominence in the mainstream pop continuity with Mortal Kombat 9 coming out in 2011. Then we got Mortal Kombat X. Then of course we got Mortal Kombat 11. Not to mention we had the Mortal Kombat Rebirth short film that jumped on YouTube. And then of course we had the short-lived series Mortal Kombat Legacy. The reboot movie has been in the works for quite some time now. And I know initially it was supposed to drop in the beginning of this year. We were supposed to get it in January, but given everything with the pandemic that's dropped since March of last year, a lot of things got pushed back. So, needless to say, that I could definitely say for myself that I've been very excited for the Mortal Kombat reboot movie. We didn't get like trailers and promotional stuff until I believe mid to late February, and now we're just a week away from the premiere of the Mortal Kombat reboot movie. It was supposed to drop this past Friday, actually, but they pushed it back another week. Because of that, I thought it would be a good idea for us to really go through everything dealing with the Mortal Kombat franchise, because there's a lot of other things within the franchise aside from just the games and the movies that we saw. You guys have any thoughts before we jump into this thing?
I'm just thinking about how it's a shame that we couldn't start this with like the old movie Mortal Kombat theme song, because we'll get DMCA'd and all that.
Yeah. I mean, the algorithms for a lot of things, and HB has finally joined us. What is going on, dude?
Yes, I'm good, man. Sorry for being late.
No problem.
Life happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Not a problem. HB, my boy EJ is joining us on this stream.
EJ, how are you?
What's up, dude?
I'm good, man.
So I've basically listed out every property from the Mortal Kombat franchise in chronological order. So we'll be able to get through these things relatively easy and in order, because to go out of order would just be kind of crazy, trying to jump from one point to the next. So we're going to start off with the game that started it all, Mortal Kombat, which dropped in 1992. Now, I can tell you right now, I had no idea what this game is until one of my childhood friends introduced me to it. He had it for the Super Nintendo. I think I might have seen commercials for it here and there on TV, but I didn't know much about it. I was still rocking a Nintendo, like around 1992. So when I went over his house and he was showing me this game Mortal Kombat, I'm like, I remember I instantly fell in love with it. Like, I went home and told my other brother, like, dude, there's this crazy game where it's like blood. Well, the Super Nintendo version didn't have blood. Let's be correct. But
it had sweat.
Yeah, it had sweat and modified fatalities. However, the thing that took me by surprise, not only was it the martial arts, but the uppercuts. When I got introduced to the uppercuts that were in Mortal Kombat, I was like, this is insane. I get to knock this person all the way up in the air and they land back down on their back. This is fantastic. This is a great game. And up until that point, until I got a Sega Genesis, I hadn't really seen Mortal Kombat after that anywhere else. So needless to say, after I got my Sega, I have the entire Mortal Kombat. I'll have pretty much almost every single Mortal Kombat game for the Genesis at the time. But Mortal Kombat definitely left a lasting impression on me, and I said I got to see more of this game.
I was looking at all the platforms that Mortal Kombat was on, and some of these I've never even heard of.
Like what?
Amiga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had or I didn't know that Mortal Kombat was on. Like, Mortal Kombat was in DOS. Android, Arcade, Dreamcast, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, GameCube, Game Gear, Game.com, IBM. You could play on Apple's iOS. You could play on Microsoft Windows. You could play it on MS-DOS. N64, Nintendo DS, Nintendo Switch, all the PlayStations, including portable and Vita. I don't think I even heard of that one.
PS Vita, yeah.
R-Zone, Sega 32X, Sega CD, Sega Genesis, Sega Master System, Sega Saturn. Super Nintendo, Stadia, TV game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
3D, Xbox, basically 360, Xbox One, and Xbox
Yeah.
3.
Mm-hmm. Like it still holds up for the most part because of course I have the HD collection on the PlayStation 3, so from time to time I'll jump on that and just go through, play one ladder round of Mortal Kombat. So it still holds up even after all this time. It still holds up, much like Street Fighter 2. It pretty much still holds up after all this time.
I'm trying to figure out how you play Mortal Kombat on DOS.
Wow. Let's see. I guess you have a WASD, and I guess the high punch is I, the low punch is K. I'm just guessing.
I mean, I have played a few like arcade based games on like the computer, and like it's really like key based that you have to play it. So, like,
wow.
I guess that's where home row really comes into play and stuff like that. But I'm very much a controller type of guy when it comes to games like that. The only other tie into the Mortal Kombat game was, of course, the limited comic book series that it had. They had plenty of different titles. They had the Mortal Kombat Blood and Thunder series, Battle Wave, Goro, Prince of Pain, Raiden and Kano, Tournament Edition, and then the U.S. Special Forces. Now, I maybe only had like one of those comics, but at the time I wasn't really a big comic book, buyer. So I would see them here and there. I didn't know too many that actually owns any of the Mortal Kombat 1 comic book series, but I know they were pretty popular. They pretty much tied in to the first game.
Yeah.
So we heard your Kendrick. We heard your introduction to Mortal Kombat. I'm curious to what everyone else's introduction was.
Yes.
Wow. My goodness. The first time I ever saw Mortal Kombat, it was in an arcade. Believe it or not, it was over in Jersey City. I walked in there and I just saw these photo realistic animated characters fighting each other, and the brutal finishing moves. The ripping out of hearts, the ripping out of necks and having the spine dangling, and decapitations. I mean, having fans being thrown and having like chopping you up to rivets, and I'm like, should I be checking? Should I be like looking at this? With my tender Christian upbringing, is this righteous? Is this holy? And then there was a part of me that was going, yo, man, this freaking rocks. Somebody actually stepped over the line and put a game in the arcades that's just rated R, not for children, but they was like, screw it, we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna ruin some children's lives here. We're gonna desensitize this generation with this level of brutality, and we ate it up and we loved it.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember the code? The when they first advertised Mortal Kombat for the Genesis, and it was like,
if I'm not mistaken,
there were hints of codes that you would be able to play the bloody versions. You would actually do the crazy fatalities, but you had to put a code in order for that to happen.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the code is still ABACABB.
Yep, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, that was my introduction to Mortal Kombat, and then of course Mortal Kombat 2. I was very happy to see someone of African American descent as a character, and a very strong character at that. Jax, with his abilities, and then. And in the third game, poor Jax lost his arms.
All right, let's not jump too ahead now, because we still got to go in order.
But I had a great time, and it was wonderful. And even in the original Mortal Kombat, I think it was I believe it was still also in the arcade, that there was a way not necessarily to play as a certain character. Do you want to talk about that now? Do you want to talk about that later?
I mean, we could talk about that now. But
we still going
yeah,
into introductions.
yeah.
Well, all right. Well, there was. I
No,
believe you were able.
No, I mean, I think EJ needs to talk about how he got introduced to Mortal Kombat.
Go ahead. Yes, EJ, because I'm going off. Go ahead. I have great memories, but go ahead, bro.
So my introduction into Mortal Kombat was when I was still living in Jersey City. I was at the ShopRite grocery store, and this was back when it was normal to have arcade machines in the in grocery stores.
Yep.
Yeah. So there was like a little corner of ShopRite where they used to have like all the arcades there, and I would normally go there when my mom like took me with her grocery shopping. So I go to this to where the arcades are, and to my surprise, I see this brand new game there, because every now and then an arcade might get switched out. I don't remember what it may have gotten switched out for, but here's Mortal Kombat, and here's people. You already have a couple people playing it. You already have a couple people watching it, and I go and I'm watching this, and it was just, what the hell is this? Like, with the like mentioned earlier, with the photorealistic graphics and the blood and the violence and all that. And granted, I'm assuming that this was probably so new at the time that no one knew fatalities yet. Like everyone was still kind of like learning like the ropes of the game and whatnot, but it didn't really take much to really see some like really cool stuff that you've never seen before, even without seeing the fatalities. So so I was like completely blown away by this. And as the weeks went by, every time, because my mom, she usually goes to this grocery store like every week, every 2 weeks or something. So eventually I go, and now people are like doing fatalities and stuff. So like the first fatality I ever saw was Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So and then from there, eventually the games came out on the home consoles. I never actually owned Mortal Kombat when I was younger, but other neighborhood kids would, and they had the Sega Genesis, and they would have Mortal Kombat. So I would play against like the neighborhood kids in it, and that's basically my introduction into Mortal Kombat.
Nice. Like it's definitely one of those games that, I mean, it took everybody by surprise, because because up until that point, we had like the Fatal Fury games, Final Fight games. Street Fighter, of course, which was like the top tier of all arcade fighting games and stuff. Pit Fighter was a thing, for a little bit. That some might consider that the precursor to Mortal Kombat, because they use photorealistic, characters in that game. But Mortal Kombat definitely took it to like a higher level. It became a point where that game became the center of a lot of controversy because of the graphic nature of its, gameplay, blood, gores, fatalities, and things like that. I mean, we all just love it. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. Of course.
I'll keep going.
No. What were you gonna say?
I was going to my introduction. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. You go.
I was trying to remember that really, because when Street Fighter came out, I was 8. So I definitely know that my first introduction to Mortal Kombat was not the first game that came out. I know I was a little older, maybe like 10, 12, something to that effect, when it came out on PlayStation. So yeah, I was probably around 12 at the time.
Okay.
And I never, again, like EJ, I never owned a Mortal Kombat game, but between like me and all my cousins, like, if one of the cousins had the game, then, the rest of the family said, well, they didn't see the need to get the game for their child because we could just go over that person's house. So I'm just gonna, I don't remember exactly, but I'm going to assume that my older cousin had Mortal Kombat, and that was my first real introduction to it. I don't even remember it being in the arcade. And when you guys mentioned the arcade in Jersey City, you know, I lived in Jersey City too, and I went to that arcade all the time, inside the mall. And well, actually, there were 2 arcades inside of 2 malls. But anyway, I don't remember playing Mortal Kombat in the arcade. I just remember playing at home, and I'm going to assume it was either PlayStation or N64 in '96. So that's when I first started playing. I was also in 6th grade at the time. Everybody, of course, when Mortal Kombat came out, everybody started calling me Katana.
Some people still do though. Like, hold up.
Yeah, well, some people still do that.
Like what? Like, let's not.
Was it a bad thing?
I always wanted to cosplay as her, and I wish I did when I was thinner. But maybe one day I still will.
We still got time, and there's a plethora. There's definitely a plethora of costumes that we can go through. I mean, so everybody at this point should know what Mortal Kombat is about. But for those who don't know, if you've been living in like a parallel universe where Mortal Kombat doesn't exist, the game, of course, follows a group of humans who travel to a mystical island to battle an evil sorcerer named Shang Tsung. They are led by one of the Shinto gods, Raiden, who is the god of thunder and lightning, and he's the protector of Realm of Earth. The 3 main characters are Liu Kang, who is a Shaolin monk, Sonya Blade, who is a U.S. Army soldier, and then Johnny Cage, who is your stereotypical Hollywood star. The characters that they have to go against are Kano, who is an enemy of Sonya Blade. We also got the 2 ninjas, Scorpion and the Sub-Zero, who are basically palette swaps with each other. Sub-Zero is, of course, the master of ice, and Scorpion is a Hellspawn Spectre bent on revenge against Sub-Zero. This is one of the first games, aside from Street Fighter, that had a comprehensive story behind its game. Most games at the time, a lot of games actually had stories, but they weren't like super fleshed out like they are and can be right now. So for a lot of people who played the game, you probably got a lot of Enter the Dragon type vibes, because Liu Kang was pretty much the archetypal Bruce Lee character of the game, which became commonplace as years went on in many fighting games. Look, to any fighting game, you definitely have a Bruce Lee type of character in it. Street Fighter has Fei Long, Tekken has Marshall and Forrest Law, Dead or Alive has Jan Lee, Soul Calibur has Maxi. They're all very commonplace. They are very commonplace at this point. But I think because it had elements of like Enter the Dragon, and of course elements of like Big Trouble in Little China, I think that's one of the reasons why that game really stood out to a lot of people, because the god Raiden was pretty much modeled after Lightning from Big Trouble in Little China. You can definitely see the parallels between the two. So needless to say, Mortal Kombat to me still stands the test of time. It's still one of my favorite games. I still give it I give it an 8, because as long as it's been out, it's still a good go-to game to go back to. That's my rating of it. So it's still awesome. It set the precedent for a lot of games, which leads us into its direct sequel, which came out the very next year in 1993, which is Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 picks up directly right after the first game. Now there's a few more heroes now. HP, you talked about the inclusion of Jax, who is Sonya Blade's superior and the first African American character to be included in a fighting game. Scorpion and Sub-Zero come back. Liu Kang and Johnny Cage come back, but Sonya Blade does not. She is absent from the game, as well as Kano. We are introduced to a couple of other new characters. Kung Lao, who is another Shaolin monk who is friends with Liu Kang. We are introduced to Baraka, who is a Tarkatan mutant from the Outworld, who the Earthrealm forces have to fight against. We're introduced to the quote-unquote twins, Katana and Molina. Katana, who learns is actually the princess of a long-forgotten realm, and Molina, which is not her actual twin sister, but her clone created by Shang Tsung. Shang Tsung actually returns in this game, but he returns in a much younger form. Shang Tsung was the final boss in Mortal Kombat 1, who had the old man look. He looked like David Lopan. And then, of course, he had a couple of lieutenants, but his main right-hand man was, of course, the four-armed monster Goro. In Mortal Kombat 2, we get another four-armed monster by the name of Kintaro, who is half human, half tiger. Goro was half human, half dragon, and they belong to a race known as the Shokin that exists on the outskirts of Outworld. Then, of course, Reptile becomes a playable character. He is a third palette swap of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who also returns in this game. We also have... Am I forgetting anybody? I think that's all the characters from Mortal Kombat 2, with the exception of the hidden characters, of course. Smoke, Jade, and Noob Saibot, who are 3 secret characters that you get to fight under specific circumstances. And then, of course, the final boss of Mortal Kombat 2, which is Shao Khan. And I gotta tell you right now, Shao Khan has to be one of the greatest fighting game bosses to ever be created. He really is. Like from his look, from his shit talking while you're fighting him, to everything else about Shao Kahn. And
you will die.
And not only that, but he was one of the hardest bosses to beat. Absolutely. Like, I've seen many people, who weren't super skilled in Mortal Kombat. I've seen many people spend quarter after quarter after quarter trying to beat Shao Kahn. And and a lot of people I used to watch play the arcade game were really impressive. I got introduced to Mortal Kombat when I was living in Montclair, and there used to be an arcade right down the street from me. So when Mortal Kombat came out, I got introduced to it there. So in fact, and this was one of those occasions where it's when a new game comes out, they try to have 2 or 3 arcade machines in the facility so everybody can play. So and they get the special treatment with the big screen arcade machines and stuff too, not like your standard ones. They get the big boys. So I jump into the arcade one day and I see Mortal Kombat 2 there, and I'm like, holy crap! There's a sequel to this. And ironically, this is the same arcade that didn't get a stand of an arcade cabinet of Mortal Kombat 1 until maybe a few months after that. So they had Mortal Kombat 2 there, and then we got Mortal Kombat 1 right after that come into the arcade. But the graphics got cleaned up. The pacing of the graphics was a lot faster. The story was expanded on a little bit more. And to this day, out of all the Mortal Kombat games we've ever gotten, Mortal Kombat 2 is still my favorite game. Out of the whole entire series, Mortal Kombat 2 is my favorite.
Absolutely. It's fun. And just to I don't know if I heard you correctly. You said that Jax was the first African American in a fighting game, you said?
I believe so. Yeah.
Actually, if we take it back, I believe that before there was Mortal Kombat, there was a little fighting game called Eternal Champions. And there was a game, one of the characters, believe it or not, his name was Blade.
Eternal Champions. Eternal Champions. Eternal Champions. I actually, wait, didn't Eternal Champions come out after Mortal Kombat?
Let's find out. Because I just remember playing Eternal Champions before Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Eternal Champions was made it was inspired by Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Are we gonna not include Punch Out as a fighting game?
I was gonna say I should take those words back, because not only Punch Out, but I'm also forgetting Street Fighter 2 had Balrog in it, and he was an African American. So I do. Yes. So
Joe, the very, very first Mortal Kombat game. That's interesting. That's a whole subject unto itself, man.
So I do have to take that statement back. Jax was not the first African American character in a fighting game. There's actually been quite a few that have existed, but because I mean not to go off the topic, but I remember The only place I've ever seen Eternal Champions on was on console.
I think that's all it came out on was console.
Yeah, like I remember specifically for the Sega Genesis. I think it came out in other consoles too, but I remember seeing it first on home consoles. I don't ever remember seeing it in the arcade.
I think it only came out for like Sega products. Like I think it came out for Sega Genesis and perhaps Sega CD.
Right, Sega Genesis CD, and I think Game Gear.
Right,
and you are correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you are correct on Eternal Champions. Yes, I stand corrected. Eternal Champions. It was actually released in 1993.
There we go. So
whereas,
Mm-hmm. All right, so that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was good to see. It was good to see one of us in the game finally.
Mm-hmm. Mortal Kombat Dude did have like a prologue comic to it called the Collector's Edition. I remember reading that once, and it told the events between Mortal Kombat 2 and between Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2. But like I said, Mortal Kombat 2 is still one of my favorites out of the entire franchise. I will definitely go back and play that usually more times than I will the other ones because I just, to me, the fatalities in Mortal Kombat 2 definitely hold up way better than a lot of the later installments, not including like Mortal Kombat 11, not including Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat X, and of course Mortal Kombat 9. So, but like my introduction to it was in the arcade, and then of course when it came out on home consoles, I had a friend who had it. He had the game, so we would sit and watch. Don't ask me to recite any of the codes for it because I don't remember any of the codes for Mortal Kombat 2. Like not one. But definitely I enjoyed the hell out of Mortal Kombat 2. Like I don't know about you guys. I don't know when you guys got introduced first to Mortal Kombat 2 in your timelines.
It was an arcade downtown Newark, on Market Street. That was the one that was next to the theater, and I was once again captivated. And what other new characters were introduced other than Jax?
So again, all the returning characters were, of course, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden. Of course, those are all the new returning characters. The ones who have been omitted in this game were, of course, Sonya Blade and Kano. The new characters we were introduced were Kung Lao, Reptile, Katana, Molina, a younger Shang Tsung that we got to play as, and Baraka. And then, of course, we had the hidden characters, which was, of course, Jade, Smoke, and Noob Saibot. We had the sub-boss in Kintaro. And then, of course, we had the final boss in Shao Khan. Now, the first Mortal Kombat game had a traditional ladder, playthrough. You had 3 rounds of endurance matches, which was 2-on-1. Then, of course, you had your fight with Goro. And then you had your fight with Shang Tsung in the end. Mortal Kombat did it a little bit differently. You have your standard ladder climb up. Then, of course, you have a mystery match. If you play that match within a certain circumstance, you get to fight either Jade or Smoke.
Yes,
I
remember that.
I believe in order to fight Smoke, you had to hit an uppercut during the portal stage. And if Dan Forden didn't come out and yell Toasty, that means you had to keep trying it. And once he did that, you had to press a certain button. I forgot what button you had to press in the arcade. I think it might have been start. But if you press it at the right time, you got to fight Smoke. In order to fight Jade, I think you had to win a match with like all low kicks or something like to that effect. And then to fight Noob Saibot, I think you had to win a certain amount of matches to fight him. Right. I think it was like 50 or something like that.
Yeah, I believe Reptile was a hidden. I don't know if you were. Did you fight him in the original Mortal Kombat? I remember Reptile being.
Yeah.
And I forget what were the stipulations with that? What were the conditions?
Now he would pop up randomly and he would give you clues on how to fight him. One of the clues had to be like you had to look at the moon during the pit stage, and I've never been able to do it. To this day, I've never been able to get the Reptile fight in Mortal Kombat because
look to the moon. and I think you saw something fly past
Right.
the moon.
It was either like,
that was Santa Claus or what, but
it was either Santa Claus or a witch or something like that, something to that effect.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to do that. But definitely one of the highest selling points for me for Mortal Kombat 2 was the fatalities. I thought they were definitely a lot more realistic. They were more gory, but still they maintained that realistic feel to it, and they were just and they were just top notch fatalities. They just were to me. That was 93 again. I still I give Mortal Kombat 2 a 9, like a 9.5. Again, it's still one of my favorites out of the entire midway series of Mortal Kombat games that I just genuinely love going back to.
Yeah.
You know, so any other thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2 before we move on?
What's interesting, you know, no, go ahead.
No, go.
It's interesting that, you know, that the fatality that Jax had was the ripping off of the arms, and karma kind of came back on him.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, I think some of my favorite fatalities from Mortal Kombat 2 were the arm rip from Jax. That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Liu Kang's dragon transformation. Kitana's kiss of death. I liked hers. Yeah. Baraka's impalement with his 2 arm blades, and Kung Lao's hat body slice with his hat. That was one of my favorite ones as well.
Yeah.
Scorpion. He still had his classic toasty. That's just one that we never got rid of. So that was always always a plus thing to see. And Sub-Zero has some pretty decent ones too. Like especially his ice grenade, that was always a good one. But I could never pull that one off. That was always hard. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2. Anybody else?
Yeah, so my initial exposure to Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 for that matter, for whatever reason, wasn't through the arcade. Because, you know, like how quickly, you know, like these games came out in the arcade and then came out for like home console, like almost like immediately.
Yeah.
So, you know, Mortal Kombat 2 came out. You know, of course, some of the neighborhood kids got that shit on like day one.
Yeah.
And I think I first played it on the Sega Genesis, and of course I was like just blown away by it because Mortal Kombat 2, it's definitely one of the best of all the Mortal Kombats. It's not my personal favorite, but it's definitely like very high up there. And it did everything that a sequel like should do. Where
absolutely, yep.
Like, where it just makes everything that was great about the original Mortal Kombat better, and you got more of it, and it was just wild. Like, you know, just the amount of characters they had. We had, I think, we had more fatalities per character, right?
Yes. Yeah, so back in Mortal Kombat 1, each character had 1 fatality.
Right. Yeah.
But in Mortal Kombat 2, all the characters had at least 2. Had at least 2 fatalities.
Yeah.
So and then I think did Mortal Kombat 2 add friendships and babalities?
That is correct. Yes, that's right.
Yes, they did.
Yes. So yeah.
But yeah, it was just, you know, like you had so much fucking like content to just, you know, eat through. And then what's also cool about a game like this back in the day, like this was like before, you know, way before like accessible internet and all that, information in general was like it would took weeks and months for like everyone to like figure all the little like things like that.
Yes.
And it was cool when, you know, when like months down the line you figure out, you know, someone's, you know, like friendship or rivalry or something, and it just it makes the game like new again. And then a couple times I rented Mortal Kombat 2 for the SNES, and playing through that version of the game was like really awesome because like the graphics were
Yes.
were a lot better than the Sega Genesis. Like they were a little bit closer to the arcade, not as good, but it was really good.
Yeah.
And fortunately, Nintendo decided to not try to like censor the game or anything, so we had like full on, blood.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up the whole friendship and babality thing, because friendships and babalities were Midway's answer to people who kept questioning like how violent can these games get. So as a way, it was like kind of pacifying them, but at the same time making fun of them for being so uppity about the blood and gore of the game. Babalities are one thing, but friendships I always thought were funny. I always thought friendships were pretty funny, so I definitely didn't mind that stuff. I can tell you right now, I'm still a person that has to go to the moves list to look up a fatality. The older games, I can remember a certain few, like especially for characters that I liked. I remember those fatalities, off the rip. But like right now, I still have to look at like the game moves list to figure out what the fatality is to try to pull some of these things off, because a lot of those inputs for these fatalities could be very difficult. It requires some of them require the right amount of timing. You had to have the right amount of space, and you had to create the right circumstance for instance, like Sub-Zero's ice grenade. You could do that by itself, but for Sub-Zero's like deep freeze and then body smash uppercut, you had to deep freeze him first, and then you had to get right next to him and put the inputs to throw the uppercut at him. So as challenging as those things were, it was still a lot of fun. Like a lot of times I would watch people play Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcades just to see if they could pull off a fatality, and it was just awesome to watch.
Yeah.
I had never successfully pulled off a fatality until like a couple months ago.
That's right. That's true. And just to get into the story aspect of like I said, Mortal Kombat 2 picks up right after Mortal Kombat 1. Is a continuation of the story. Instead of them fighting their battle on Earth, they are now lured into Outworld, where Shang Tsung plans to have all the heroes killed by Shao Kahn's hands. The story is still compelling. Of course, we didn't really know these things until much later on, and years later, when we were able to when the internet allowed us to access these stories and stuff. So we were only able to get bits and pieces of the story from the opening, I forget what they call it, the attraction screens of Mortal Kombat, the attraction screens, and of course, character bios and things like that. That's where we were able to get bits and pieces of the story. But at the point, story didn't really matter to us. We just wanted to see somebody's head get ripped off. So that's pretty much how that went. And that moves on to the next installment in the Mortal Kombat video game franchise, which is Mortal Kombat 3, which came out in 1995. Now, at this time, I was a full-fledged gamer at this time. So I had a Genesis, I still had a Nintendo. I don't think I got a PlayStation 1 just yet. I think I might have gotten it either that later on that year. No, I didn't get a PlayStation 1 until like a year or two later. I got a PlayStation 1. But I remember I used to be a Game Pro head, so I used to get Game Pro in the mail. And I remember getting those Game Pros that had Mortal Kombat pictures and stuff on the front of it, giving us behind the scenes look at some of the new characters and some of the new aspects of the game. Again, that was a game that I got introduced. Ironically, the arcade that was down the street from me didn't have Mortal Kombat 3. And I thought that was the craziest thing, because they had Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2. There was an arcade here in Bloomfield. There used to be an arcade here in Bloomfield that actually had Mortal Kombat 3. And they had like 3 or 4 cabinets of Mortal Kombat 3 here. So that's how I got introduced to Mortal Kombat 3. Of course, this upped this roster to I think about 15, I believe. Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat had 7. Mortal Kombat 2 had 12. And then Mortal Kombat 3, I believe had 15. Because again, the returning characters were Liu Kang. Sonya Blade made her return, played by Kerry Hoskins this time. Jax made his return. Sub-Zero, who now was unmasked in the game for the first time. Sub-Zero didn't have a mask on, so I thought that was pretty wild. Who else returned? Kung Lao returned for the game as well. And Kano returned for the game also. He returned for the game. So the new characters, we had Sindel, who we found out is the mother of Katana, and was the former wife of Shao Khan, who was forced to marry him in order to keep the Outworld and Adenio fused together. We got introduced to Shiva, who was another 4-armed character, but this time is a female, and she's a playable character as well. She was used with stop motion animation as well, much like Goro was in Control Wars in the first 2 games. We're introduced to Sector and Cyrax, 2 cyborg ninjas who are out to try to capture Sub-Zero or kill Sub-Zero. We are actually also turned into a hidden ninja, which is actually Cyber Smoke, who was turned into a cyborg by the Lin Kuei. We are also introduced to Cabal, who is one of my favorite characters in Mortal Kombat 3. Cabal was so broken, it didn't even make any sense. And then we had Shang Tsung return. Shang Tsung returned to the roster of the game. He returned. I think that might have been. And also Nightwolf. We got introduced to Nightwolf in Mortal Kombat 3, the first Native American fighter in the Mortal Kombat franchise, Nightwolf.
Yep.
Then, of course, we had Shao Kahn return as the main boss of the game. And then we had a new sub-boss in Mortal who is now a Centaur. So that was an interesting battle to have with a Centaur, who was kind of broken as well. He was kind of broken too.
Right.
Again, the only hidden character that we had in Mortal Kombat 3 was, of course, Cyber Smoke. That was it. And you had to enter the Ultimate Combat Code to access him. That's how you got. That's how you got him. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got introduced into Mortal Kombat 3, and I was completely obsessed with Mortal Kombat 3. I couldn't wait for it to come out on consoles. That was the first Mortal Kombat I bought for Sega Genesis. So needless to say, I played that a lot. I actually still remember some of the codes for Mortal Kombat 3, but I'm not going to say them right now. How did you guys get introduced to Mortal Kombat 3?
Yeah, so with Mortal Kombat 3, same deal, like neighborhood kids, like, someone got the game. And, I played it, and to be completely honest, I didn't really like Mortal Kombat 3. It was cool in, like, some, like, regards, wherever, the graphics and levels were, like, really cool, but... I don't know, like, some things just, like, fell off to me. Like, first and foremost, the game didn't have fucking Scorpion.
Yeah.
So it's just like, the fuck? Because to me, like, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, to me, are the Ryu and Ken of the franchise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So to not have Scorpion is kind of like not having like Ryu, and it's like that's just odd. Like shit makes no sense.
Right.
And then I wasn't on board with like some of the characters. Cabal was cool, but I didn't care for like Stryker.
Yes.
Yeah, Stryker was kind of throwaway there.
I believe Stryker was probably the least liked character of. Probably, maybe not the entire franchise, but definitely of that game. Like, so.
Yeah. And he looked like just so lame, like so simple design, like stuff like that. The animalities, like, which were introduced from Mortal Kombat 3, like some of them were cool, some of them were not. And why the fuck? I think it's Stryker who I think he's the one who his animality is like he turns into a scorpion.
Like a lot of the animalities didn't make any sense.
Right.
I think I remember most of them. I know Jax morphed into a lion. Sonya morphed into like an eagle. Liu Kang, of course, morphed into a dragon because that's just par for the course. Kung Lao morphed into a leopard. Kano morphed into like I forgot what Kano morphed into, honestly. But there's some of the animalities did not make sense. So
yeah, it seemed like they wanted to add like something new on top of like all the things that were introduced from Mortal Kombat 2, and it's like it didn't really like work out, the same way, unfortunately. So for me, like Mortal Kombat 3, like I played it, and that like a little bit, and that was that. Like I didn't care much for it after it came out. But I think, are we going to talk about Ultimate MK3 after this?
we're getting ready to just talk about that in a minute.
I'll save that for then.
Yeah. I will say I feel like Mortal Kombat 3 is where they just threw anything out the board and see if they could just do it, because again, we still had a fatality. Everyone still had 2 fatalities. They had babalities. Babalities were still a thing. Animalities were the new thing that was introduced, and in order to pull off an animality, you had to perform a move called Mercy, which would bring a character back to life before you actually killed them, and then perform the animality. So, like, needless to say, I didn't perform any animalities because I just didn't care to. I didn't really care for it. And then, of course, friendships were still a thing, of course. Friendships were still there. But again, I think some of my favorite fatalities have to be Sindel's screaming your skin off. I like that one. Nightwolf's beam of death, I thought was one of the best ones. I enjoyed that one also. Kano, finally he uses his cybernetic eye as a laser, so they finally introduced that in this game. So I enjoyed that one. Sector's Cyrax's self-destruct sequence, which was much reminiscent of Predator. That was cool. So I enjoyed that a great deal. But aside from that, I think I enjoyed Mortal Kombat 3 just for the actual gameplay itself. A lot of the other features that were part of it, I didn't really care for. So I did like the way it looked. It definitely looked a lot smoother than Mortal Kombat 2 and 1. But aside from that, like I said, between the original 3 trilogies, the original 3 games, Mortal Kombat 2 is definitely one I'll go back to all the time. I'll definitely throw in Mortal Kombat 1 for nostalgia. Mortal Kombat 3, I'll throw in because, this was the first Mortal Kombat game in the franchise to introduce the dial-a combo system, where each character had like a designated combo for themselves that you could perform by pressing in certain inputs. Most other games, you could just kind of string things together to create specific combos. Like not even like something like combos that mostly every character can do. Like mainly Street Fighter was good for that. But Mortal Kombat had this dial one, so everyone had like a stylistic combo for themselves that they could perform. That's cool for certain characters and stuff. It was okay. Like Sub-Zero's combo, I remember cold. Like I remember that like right off the top of my head. Some characters were kind of hard because you had to press like punch, then block, and then kick, and all this other stuff. It was complicated in most instances. It was really complicated in most instances. Like I said, I feel like they tried. They threw a whole bunch of things to the board and they just said, all right, let's just do it. Like somebody was like, all right, what of these elements can we include in the game? And everyone was like, okay. And it's like, you didn't pick one, Boone. I'm like, yes, I did. I picked all of them. So something like that or something like that. But it's definitely not a bad game. And in fact, it actually got improved upon because there were a lot of criticisms about Mortal Kombat 3. As good as it was, there were still a lot of criticisms. Again, for one, the exclusion of Scorpion, who was a main franchise stay. The brokenness of Cabal, because he was completely broken in Mortal Kombat 3. In fact, he's another character that I remember the combos off the top of my head cold. So later on that year, because I forget what month Mortal Kombat 3 dropped, but later on that year, we actually got introduced to the patch of Mortal Kombat 3, which was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was pretty much a fix of the original Mortal Kombat 3 with the inclusion of some more stages, and then, of course, the inclusion of many different characters that were missing from this game. So, for instance, Scorpion came back like he should have been taken out in the first place, but Scorpion returns. Exactly. Reptile returns. Katana and Molina return. I think those were the only characters. It wasn't until the home console version that we didn't get characters like Noob Saibot and of course a new ninja by the name of Rain. Rain, of course, is one of the other Power Swap ninjas. Noob Saibot, he made an appearance in Mortal Kombat 2. Noob Saibot actually appears in Mortal Kombat 3, but he's actually a Power Swap of... He's actually Kano, just blacked out in the original Mortal Kombat 3, so that didn't work. So, but it's only in the home console versions do you get Noob Saibot and Rain legit. But I just remember that Jade actually returns in Mortal Kombat 3. So it's actually Jade and Katana that make a return. Molina was a hidden character that hit Molina and Rain. And of course, another new ninja by the name of Ermac was introduced into Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. And those were the 3 characters that you had to use Ultimate Combat codes for to access them. So those were the 3 hidden characters in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. But a lot of the other characters finally made their return in this game. It was definitely a better patch-up of the original Mortal Kombat 3. So, like, I have the Mortal Kombat HD collection on the PlayStation 3. So it goes Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, of course. So, you know, I definitely had fun playing that. But I think I had a lot more fun playing the next... which was like the next pretty much patch up of Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And this was like, you know, PlayStation and of course the Dreamcast, which is Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Mortal Kombat Trilogy is like, again, another update of Mortal Kombat 3. They came out for the home consoles. In fact, Mortal Kombat Trilogy came out for, I believe it was definitely PlayStation, Nintendo 64. I don't believe it came out for Saturn because I think Saturn might have been dead at that point. So I definitely believe it came out for Mortal Kombat. It came out for Sega Dreamcast. EJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure it didn't come out for Saturn. I think Saturn was dead at that point.
Yeah, Saturn had died at that point. So I definitely feel like it came out for Dreamcast. But ultimately, Mortal Kombat Trilogy is exactly what it is. It's Mortal Kombat Trilogy. It's pretty much every character from Mortal Kombat 1 all the way up until Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 included in the game.
Yeah.
You know, by this point, Johnny Cage, I didn't mention this before, but Johnny Cage didn't return in Mortal Kombat 3 or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 because in storyline, Johnny Cage was killed during the 3rd game. He was killed. Yeah. But Mortal Kombat Trilogy brought him back. So all the characters from basically any character you could think of from Mortal Kombat 1 all the way up to Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was included in Mortal Kombat Trilogy. That included playable versions of Rain, playable versions of Noob Saibot. They had to introduce a new hidden character by the name of Chameleon that if you put in the right inputs, you can play him during the ladder mode. We got introduced, I believe, like if you press certain buttons, you can switch palettes for Jax to get his Mortal Kombat 2 version, Raiden to get his Mortal Kombat 1 version, Kano to get his Mortal Kombat 1 version, and Kung Lao to get his Mortal Kombat 2 version. Needless to say, that was actually the first game I actually owned for PlayStation. That was my first game I got. So that year, because Mortal Kombat Trilogy came out in 1996, so I got PlayStation that year along with Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So for a long time until I got another game, that was the game I played the most. So it's definitely one of those games that I like. I really wish I could play it now. I really wish they had like released it on like the PlayStation Network or something for like PlayStation 3 or 4 or something like that. I'd love to play that game again. I really would. I miss it a lot. I miss Mortal Kombat Trilogy a lot. But just to give you guys the backstory on Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, as well as Mortal Kombat Advance, which is a Game Boy Advance version of Mortal Kombat Trilogy that came out in 2001. And then, of course, we have Ultimate Mortal Kombat, which came out for the PlayStation Plus. No, not PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Portable. That came out in 2007. Basic premise of Mortal Kombat 3. Again, it's a direct continuation of Mortal Kombat 2. This time, Shao Khan invades the Earth because Sindel, his dead bride, was reborn or resurrected on Earth to basically bridge the gateway between Earth Realm and Outworld. The chosen warriors represent the Earth, and Mortal Kombat are, of course, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Sub-Zero, Nightwolf, Cabal, Sonya Blade, Jax, and am I forgetting anyone? Nightwolf. So it's about 8 characters that were chosen to represent the other Mortal Kombat. Initially, again, Raiden doesn't return until Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So this is the first game where not only was Scorpion not playable, but Raiden wasn't playable. But they kept that until the home port of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, because Mortal Kombat Trilogy never came out in the arcades. It's only a home console game. But again, Raiden didn't return for Mortal Kombat 3, so it was interesting that he was absent from the game. Again, Shao Khan returns as the final boss. Motaro returns as the sub boss. Even Mortal Kombat Trilogy even allowed you to play as the bosses in regular arcade mode. You could play as Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, and Shao Kahn. And every character had a proper arcade ending and things like that. So, needless to say, it's definitely one of my favorite games. I believe the N64 version of it is regarded as not as great as the PlayStation version of it, but the N64 version did have a female chameleon as one of the unlockable characters, and while the PlayStation version had a male chameleon, so that was pretty interesting. So, any final thoughts on Mortal Kombat 3 before we move on?
Yeah, I would have to agree that Mortal Kombat 3 was not my come back and play again kind of experience. I mean, you already pointed out the cool things about it. Yes, it was smoother. There were some fatalities that were dope. But obviously they did make up for their little faux pas about not having a Scorpion in it, and made up for a lot when they released the Ultimate and the Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Those were much more enjoyable games. Are we in the realm of talking about the spin-offs, or are we going to go straight through?
We're actually if anybody else have anything to add about Mortal Kombat 3 before we move on?
So as far as like Mortal Kombat 3 goes, Ultimate MK3 is like the only Mortal Kombat 3 I will acknowledge.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
100%, yes.
Yeah. So I first discovered Ultimate MK3 when I was already down here living in Florida. I went to a place, I don't know if you guys recall or even knew this was a thing, but there used to be an arcade amusement place called Blockbuster Golf and Games. And there was a Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 machine. Had no idea this was a freaking thing.
Right.
So I see this and I'm like, what is this? And then of course, the cabinet looked really cool and all that.
Yes.
I go up to it to start playing, and there's this, all the characters that were missing, especially Scorpion, were like in the game. So I'm already like, oh my god. But then you got new characters, like new ninjas, like fucking Ermac. Like, the fuck? And I think he was like one of the first characters I had to fight, and it was like crazy. There was more levels that looked really, really cool. And yeah, it just, to me, like, it fixed everything that I like, all the problems that I had with Mortal Kombat 3, like before that. And with Mortal Kombat Trilogy, unfortunately, like I never really got to play that game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but from everything that like I've heard about it, whatever, it seems like it was like a proper send off of like the first 3 Mortal Kombat games for like all the fans that stuck with it since like day one.
That is the best way to put it. It was definitely a good send off for the original trilogy of games for all the hardcore Mortal Kombat fans. And it's funny because you remind me, I was still getting Game Pros at the time, so I was getting Game Pros of talking about Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I'm like, what the heck is Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3? And this is at a time where I wasn't well versed in games to know that like sometimes they put out patchworks or like updates of games that are currently out. So, but like even though Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was like a complete patchwork job for Mortal Kombat 3, like I didn't get introduced to it until like later on, of course, that year, when it dropped in the arcades. And again, the same arcade down here in Bloomfield that had Mortal Kombat 3 pretty much replaced Mortal Kombat 3 with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. They took Mortal Kombat 3 out and just replaced it. You know, so like I don't think I saw another Mortal Kombat 3 cabinet until like one of the video stores that was down the street from me when I was living in Montclair like had it in there. They had like a regular Mortal Kombat 3 cabinet in the actual video store. That was Palmer Video at the time. So Palmer Video.
Palmer Video.
That's a throwback for you folks watching. Remember that Palmer Video? Huh?
Yeah,
remember that?
Palmer Video, man.
Pepperidge Farmer members. Pepperidge Farmer members. But I mean, it of course turned into West Coast Video after like a couple of years, but you know, it's still Palmer Video to me, damn it. So
a little side note: if you ever get a chance to watch this really, really fantastic documentary about the last blockbuster,
I still gotta watch that.
It's good.
I still have to watch that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ironically, later on that same year of 1995, we got our first Mortal Kombat movie. So Mortal Kombat the movie dropped in the summer of 1995. Now before that, a little VHS animation of the pretty much the sequel Mortal Kombat dropped called Mortal Kombat The Journey Begins. I had it too. Mm-hmm. I watched it as much as I could, even though the animation and everything about it was funky. I knew it was funky, but I still watched it anyway because I got a kick out of it.
Yeah. It was that little morsel of excitement for the up and coming Mortal Kombat movie. It was like that little hors d'oeuvre or that appetizer. And every time you watched it, you were like, yeah, Mortal Kombat the movie's coming out, you know, and it just brought you up and got you excited about it.
Now, basically, for those of you guys who don't remember, because there's probably a lot of you that don't remember this, Mortal Kombat The Journey Begins, again, of course, was a little animated short that pretty much set up Mortal Kombat the movie. So it's almost like the beginning part of Act 2 for Mortal Kombat the movie, where Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade, they're on a ship traveling to Shang Tsung's island to go deal with him. They deal with Scorpion and Sub-Zero. We get some backstories about Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Goro, the Great Kung Lao, Shang Tsung, things like that. It was interesting. It's definitely guilty of reusing some animations, mainly Johnny Cage for his retreats. Like, you could probably find it somewhere on YouTube, just a clip of his retreats. It's hilarious. The whole thing is funny. If anything, right now I can laugh at how funny it was, because I mean, as a kid, I thought it was cool because this is the first foray into like really computer generated like fight scenes. So we had a fight scene between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, a fight scene between Kung Lao and Goro, a fight scene between Goro and his brother, a fight scene between Shang Tsung and old Chinese master. Oh yeah, it's very dated. Don't get me wrong. It is very, very dated. But you know, it was worth it to get you pumped up for the Mortal Kombat movie. I think if you bought the movie, if you bought the little animated movie, you get like a free ticket or something in there or something like that and stuff. And this is when. And it was around this time where Mortal Kombat was really, really, really starting to get hyped. And not just based off of the video games, because they were starting to sell a lot of merchandise. I mean, they had merchandise before, like, you know, we had like the albums for the Mortal Kombat 1 game, the albums for the Mortal Kombat 2 game, and the albums for Mortal Kombat 3, you know, using the background music as part of the albums. But like, you know, Mortal Kombat was getting very popular as far as merchandise, and there were shirts, hats, you know, jewelry, watches, and things like that. You know, things that you can buy to represent Mortal Kombat. But, of course, that doesn't pale to comparison to the promotion for Mortal Kombat the movie. And let me tell you, promotion for Mortal Kombat the movie was, like, super hype. Like, because, again, at this time, the only video game movies we had up until that point was Super Mario Brothers. I think Double Dragon came out around that time, too. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it either came out a little before or a little after. It was like around that same period of time.
And ironically, I believe the year Mortal Kombat came out was the same year the live action Street Fighter movie came out too.
Yes.
The Street Fighter movie came out months before that though.
Right.
And needless to say, the Street Fighter movie was met with some, you know, any of the diehard Street Fighter fans knew that that's not the movie that they were hoping to get.
No.
I remember the radio promotion for the Mortal Kombat movie, and you know, the song came on and the voice was like, what do Street Fighter and Mario Brothers have in common? They both sucked. Coming soon to a theater near you. Mortal Kombat.
Well,
I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday.
I
actually said that for real.
Ironically, 1995 was actually the year I actually started taking karate. That was the first year I started. So, when Mortal Kombat dropped, I was a white belt at the time, but my karate school actually did a demo at one of the movie theaters in Newark before the movie started. That was going to be my chance to catch it, but I wasn't able to catch it at the time because the thing's already gone underway. I think we all wanted to see Mortal Kombat that weekend because I was dying to see this movie. You have no idea. I was dying. I was so dying to see Mortal Kombat the movie. It was insane. But needless to say, everybody was hyped for this. Like anything dealing with like the making of or behind the scenes footage of Mortal Kombat, I was watching it. Ironically, the Mortal Kombat, the Journey Begins animated video that came out actually had a making of Mortal Kombat towards the end of the tape. If you actually just let it play through, you actually got to watch that. And again, the promotional things for not only Mortal Kombat the movie, but Mortal Kombat 3 were actually really top notch, because especially for Mortal Kombat the movie, they would if you watch certain things, they would actually give you combat codes for Mortal Kombat 3.
Yes, they did.
Like, even if you watch the entire credits for Mortal Kombat all the way through, it would give you a combat code. But again, of course, Mortal Kombat 1 Mortal Kombat the movie recaps everything pretty much dealing with Mortal Kombat 1 with elements of Mortal Kombat 2 in it. Like, the only element really that Katana was included in Mortal Kombat 1 the movie. That was pretty much it. But other than that, it pretty much holds up to everything else. The only thing that was missing from Mortal Kombat the movie was Fatalities, which was probably everyone's only gripe with the movie, was the fact that no Fatalities were included in it. And I think a lot of people were just looking forward to that. But other than that, I think everything else about Mortal Kombat movie worked. To me, it's still one of the best video game movie adaptations to be in existence.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, and people wonder, within the history of video game films, why was it that Mortal Kombat stood out among them all? Because basically, each character, even from jump, if you just sat there and just watched, I think what it's called in arcades, when nobody's playing, is something called attraction mode.
Yeah,
where you actually saw the picture of each combateer, and it gave a little background story about it. Mortal Kombat, in essence, was really written and made to be a movie. They could not go wrong with this.
Yep.
And I believe that's exactly the reason why it worked so well, because we knew the characters, we knew the stories, and just to see it unfold the way it did, it was incredible. And the martial arts were top-notch fight scenes. These were top-notch fight scenes, fantastic fight scenes. It was nothing. Some of the effects are dated, but you don't really mind because it's classic. Oh yeah.
This. I don't know how long this was going on before Mortal Kombat movie, but I think for me, Mortal Kombat, the possibility of Mortal Kombat the movie, was definitely my foray into a little bit of fan casting, because these are characters that are based on characters who use real actors in the game. So when you think of a movie, it's like, okay, what actor can play this character? Who could play who?
Yeah.
Who could play Liu Kang? Who could play Sonya Blade? Who could play Johnny Cage? You know, so the casting for the Mortal Kombat movie was actually pretty spot on. You know, you had Robin Shou, who was from Hong Kong, who came in and played Liu Kang, and was literally like Liu Kang for years. He's like everybody's ideal version of Liu Kang, even up until now. He's still the ideal version of Liu Kang. Lyndon Ashby, who played Johnny Cage, who played a great Johnny Cage too. He was like Johnny Cage might have been one of the star characters in the movie. Honestly speaking, he might have been one of the star characters. He was definitely one of my favorites. Bridget Wilson, who played Sonya Blade, even though I heard that originally Cameron Diaz was, poised to play Sonya Blade, but she got injured, so she had to drop out. So that's when we went to Bridget Wilson. Christopher Lambert as Raiden, who gave us a sarcastic and snarky Raiden that we didn't know we needed. As long as we all live, Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa will always be Shang Tsung.
Yes.
No matter what, he will always be Shang Tsung. Always. Unfortunately, Sub-Zero and Scorpion didn't have any lines of dialogue in the movie, so that kind of took away from their effect in their story. Talisa Soda, who plays Katana, I thought she did very well also. Again, everything about that was definitely great. Like,
Did you mention Trevor Goddard at all?
Trevor Goddard, who played Kano, who because of his portrayal, is now why Kano is the way he is now in the games. Initially, like back in Mortal Kombat 1, Kano was supposed to be like Japanese American. But because of Trevor Goddard's portrayal of Kano, that's when they decided to make him Australian.
Yeah.
That's when they decided to do that. So because of Trevor Goddard's portrayal, may he rest in peace, by the way, because if you guys know, Trevor Goddard did pass away like back in like the late 90s, like early 2000s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's right. But because of the portrayal of Kano, like that's why we got the Kano that we got right now in later installments of the game. But no, the hype around Mortal Kombat was palpable. From the movie itself to the banging soundtrack, like that theme song, it's still universally recognized. It's still universally recognized. It is the theme song for Mortal Kombat. Like, especially like if you were me and you went into the theater and the movie started and you hear the Mortal Kombat yell and then the music started banging and then it's like you knew it was about to be on. You knew what time it was. So like everything about that game was. I mean everything about the movie was fantastic. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really did. There's no really
soundtrack too.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, this was actually a milestone for them because Goro was actually animatronic. The character was animatronic. He was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, and he was puppeteered. And like you look at it, and it's like if you watch it, if you hear the people now who worked on it, they will tell you that working on Goro was probably the most pain in the butt thing that they had to work on. But when you look at the movie and you see how Goro moves, it's like, holy crap, they pulled this off a great deal.
Yeah, they did.
Any more thoughts on Mortal Kombat the movie before we move on?
No, I mean, if you listen, all I could say is like if you really, really listen carefully, when at the end of the Scorpion versus Johnny Cage fight, you actually kind of heard the word toasty a little bit, just a little bit.
I'd have to go back and watch that. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Pat Johnson actually choreographed all the fights for the Mortal Kombat movie except 2. When it was test screened, a lot of the I think the viewers said like it's cool, but there's not enough fights. So Robin Shou, who plays Liu Kang, he actually choreographed 2 of the most awesome fights in the movie. Scorpion versus Johnny Cage. I don't know why I don't know why you would not have a fight scene with Johnny Cage in it and Scorpion for that matter.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite fights in the whole movie. Johnny versus Scorpion. Scene, and Reptile versus Liu Kang. Another bomb fight. Like ironically, the 2 fights that he choreographed are the best fights in the movie. Like it's insane.
Big audience moment when he did the bicycle kick.
Oh,
everybody went berserk. Literally, the theater erupted when Liu Kang did the bicycle kick.
Like it was awesome. It was completely awesome. It's still one of my favorite movies, and it's still one of the best video game movie adaptations to be in existence right now.
Yeah, you had a couple of WAMC masters in there too.
Yes. Because as a matter of fact, Chris Casamassa, he played Scorpion.
Yeah.
Francois Petit played Sub-Zero. Hakeem Alston was Liu Kang's first opponent in the tournament.
Yep.
I know a couple of them will also work stunts as well, but I honestly believe that like Mortal Kombat was able to help bring WMC Masters into fruition because of it.
Yeah. That was a fun show.
I miss that show a lot. I really do. Like I wouldn't be adverse if they brought it back for a new generation.
Right.
Like if anybody is listening from there, I have a pitch for it. If you guys are interested, I have a pitch for a new WMC Masters. Like if you just give me a moment of your time, we can make something happen because I think the world is ready for it now. Like that's just my shameless plug, but still.
That might be a little subject for another show. Like, what happened to WMC Masters? I mean, it ended on a cliffhanger.
I actually wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind doing that. Like me, you, and EJ, we could probably sit down and do one of those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like we'll pencil that in. We'll definitely do a what happened to that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Moving right along. The following year, we got our first Mortal Kombat animated series in Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm. So Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm kind of piggybacks off of the Mortal Kombat movie, but this time, as opposed to it being like a Mortal Kombat style cartoon, the characters are more of like a, what's the best way to describe them?
They're like a G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Like now, remember this is around the same time that we also got a Street Fighter animated series and a Savage Dragon series. This was around on the USA Network. They were all on the USA Network. This is around the time where they were trying to. This was around the time when they were trying to revive a lot of these video game franchises into animated series. So, I think. Maybe either before that we had the Double Dragon series, so we had a Double Dragon cartoon. Of course, we had the Super Mario Brothers Super Show plus the Super Mario Brothers 3 cartoon. We had the Legend of Zelda cartoon. Was that it?
Space Ace, Dragon's Lair, Q-Bird,
Wing Commander. We had a Wing Commander cartoon. There was
Captain N, the Game Master.
Captain N, the Game Master. Yep.
So yeah, they definitely tried their hand a lot in video game being adapted into animation. But like HB said, the Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm series was much like a G.I. Joe type of deal. Raiden served as who was voiced by Clancy Brown. Raiden was voiced by Clancy Brown in the animated series, who served as kind of like an advisor. Nightwolf was kind of like the command center dude. The team consisted of Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, voiced by the late Luke Perry, which was awesome. Jax, Sonya, Katana, again, like I said, Nightwolf, and Stryker. Stryker, who I think was voiced by Ron Perlman, he voiced Stryker. But other than that, it was okay. I think it only ran for like one season.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it ran for one season. Yeah. It did a couple of things. They dealt with Sector and Cyrax, but this was actually the series that introduced us to a couple of new characters and established some older ones. Like, for instance, ironically, in the animated series, Sector and Cyrax ethnicities were swapped. Sector was black and Cyrax was Asian. But as we know in the games, Cyrax is black and Sector is Asian. But they introduced those. They get into the backstory of Smoke and dealing with the Lin Kuei. This was a cartoon that actually introduced us to Quan Chi.
Yeah.
Quan Chi is actually where he made his actual debut. He made his debut in the Defenders of the Realm series, not Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. It was actually this. He appeared in one episode, of course, but other than that, they also brought in Rain. Rain made an appearance in the series as well. So did Shao Khan and the Centaurs and the Tarkatans. It was okay for its time, but looking back at it now, it was kind of, I think they tried to hang on to the magic of what made the Mortal Kombat movie work, but tried to put it in anime form, and it wasn't going to work that way. Sonya Blade was a pain in the ass in the series. She was like a whole ass. Like, I remember one episode. I remember one episode where Cabal showed up. That was an interesting episode. Like, a couple of the characters from the games made an appearance. Cabal showed up. Of course, we had Ermac was there. Ermac showed up. I don't think we ever got Noob Saibot though. I don't think Noob Saibot ever showed up. But like I said, we got introduced to Quan Chi. Sub-Zero made an appearance. It was okay. But I understand why it lasted only one season. Really.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I think the Street Fighter's animated series lasted for only one season also.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But they butchered the hell out of that.
Yeah.
Oh, it was horrible.
Like especially with the episodes with Akuma in it were, oh God. They were bad. Like I just recently watched a highlight of the fight between Ken and Akuma and the cartoon. And I was like, this is horrible.
And weren't they still were they still pronouncing Ryu's name Ryu?
Yeah.
Probably. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were, because of the stupid Street Fighter live action movie. They called Ryu, so everything after that was Ryu, and then also, they took the story of Blanca from the Street Fighter movie and put that in the animated series.
As a matter of fact, I think they took, I'd say 90% of the premise. No, not 90. Like maybe 80% of the premise from the movie and put it into the show.
Yeah, but thank God, Ryu and Ken weren't Nerf gun smugglers.
Yes. they did do right by Ken and Ryu. I'll give them that to a degree. Yeah. They did do right by them. But again, that was almost kind of like G.I. Joe-ish as well. It was kind of like that too.
Yeah, definitely was.
But that was 96. And the following year, I mean, I got no rating on that because I got no rating on Defenders of the Realm because whatever. The following year, 1997, we got the next, actually kind of a spin-off game for the Mortal Kombat franchise in Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This was supposed to be the start of Midway branching off in a different style of games with the Mortal Kombat mythos. So we kind of took a break from, not really a big break. We didn't really take a big break from the Mortal Kombat fighting games themselves, but this is their first foray into trying to venture off into action adventure games based around Mortal Kombat. So Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero centered around the first Sub-Zero, Bihan, as he tries to deal with Shinnok, who will become the new big bad in the Mortal Kombat universe. They did have cutscenes in it, which I thought were pretty cool. That was that. But other than that, the game was unnecessarily hard for no reason, or not even that. Well, yes, some of the levels were ridiculously hard for no reason, and some of the gameplay was definitely didn't translate well. There was a code for level skip, so there was that. But aside from that, honestly speaking, if you can just find all the cutscenes for the game, just watch that.
Yes.
Honestly, if I'm going to be honest with you, just go watch the cutscenes of the game. You can watch other people play the game. I believe Maximilian Dude, he had a stream of him playing the game. A couple other people, but honestly, just watch it for the cutscenes. That's it, because there's a fair amount of them. There's actually even a blooper reel for the game, so you can go find that, and
Oh,
that's actually pretty funny. I'll admit, but
Mhm.
no, I mean, other than that, again, we got introduced to new characters. Again, Shinnok returned. We got introduced to him in full capacity this time, like a full-fledged introduction to Shinnok. To Quan Chi. We get introduced to Shinnok, who is a fallen elder god. We get introduced to Serena, one of the NetherRealm female warriors and stuff. There's a couple of them, but we got introduced to Fujin, the god of wind. We got introduced to him.
Mhm.
So, but again, like I said, if you can, just go watch the cutscenes on YouTube. You'll save yourself the trouble.
right.
Mm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there wasn't a YouTube back during those days.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
at the time that Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero came out, I didn't have a PlayStation yet. I that was during the time where I had an N64, so I played the game originally on N64. Unfortunately, because it's N64, we were kind of gypped out of the cutscenes, so everything was
Yes.
pictures and text. But it didn't matter. The game was still the same trash ass game that
Yeah.
played on
Mhm.
PlayStation. It was just so awful. Like when you play maybe the first level of the game, it seems like this could be kind of cool.
Yes.
But then after that, they try to also make a platformer, but they try to make a platformer with fighting game controls, and it just doesn't fucking work at all.
Mhm.
And the levels were just so poorly designed where you would have I remember because I couldn't get past this point in the game where there's this one area where you had these swinging ledges or something.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, and you would try to time your jump so you could jump on them, but it's like no matter when you try to jump on them, no matter how much it looks like okay, you should have landed on it, you're not. So after that, I was like, yeah, fuck this game.
Yes.
Luckily, I rented it. Luckily I rented it, but yeah, after that was forget this game.
I will shamefully admit that I owned this game.
Oh,
I owned it. I had gotten it for Christmas. I thought, I thought it was going to be cool. It's about Sub-Zero, one of the best characters in the game. What can go wrong? Everything went
Right.
wrong.
yeah.
Everything.
That level you're talking about was the bane of my
Yes.
existence. I just stopped playing after a while.
Yeah.
I just got cheat codes to just skip levels. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I literally just did that because I'm like, this isn't worth it.
It's necessary.
This isn't worth my time trying to jump on these platforms with the wind blowing up and me just falling into water with the same animation with the no. Sorry, no.
I feel like also with Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero, it kind of helped also usher in kind of the dark period of Mortal Kombat.
This is correct because that same year in 1997 we got Mortal Kombat 4. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I was kind of done after Mortal Kombat Trilogy and Mortal Kombat 3. I thought it was done. I thought okay, I don't think we need any more Mortal Kombat. So I think we're good now. We don't need any more.
Yeah.
But then we got Mortal Kombat 4, which went full 3D. Now, me, I was always a fan of the digitized actors. I was a fan of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was innovative. But then it went 3D. And, again, still trying to piggyback off of the success of the Mortal Kombat movie. Pretty much piggybacking off of that success. They try to model it more like that. But it was almost pretty much like Mortal Kombat 3, but with just 3D characters, kind of, and stuff.
Yeah.
So we had and they had a lot of revisions. There was a lot of revisions for this game. A lot of revisions. But we have returning characters. We had Liu Kang, Jax, Sonya, Raiden, Johnny Cage. I think those might have been the only returning characters. We got introduced new characters. Kai, another Shaolin monk. Jarek, who is Diet Kano, essentially. I mean, it's essentially Diet Kano. Fujin, the God of Wind, who ironically was my favorite character in the game. Fujin. Shinnok, of course, Quan Chi. Shinnok, who's of course the big bad, but you got to play as him outright. So I'm like, why is he playable if he's the boss? This is not how this is supposed to work. But granted, Street Fighter did it too, so I guess it was okay. So you got to use M. Bison, but also fight against M. Bison. So it is what it is. I'm trying to think if there's any other characters that. Reiko, General Reiko, who was like a new Outworld character. Tanya, who was like an Edenian ambassador who was also a backstabber. I think, is there any other characters that I might have forgotten about? I mean,
the game should be forgotten.
Well, yeah. But you know what's so funny? I find myself wanting to play it sometimes because I guess I have like a bit of a soft spot for it, but not so much. Like if it were on like the PlayStation Network for like $5, I'd buy it just because. Because ironically, the PlayStation version, the home console versions of the game were actually a bit better. Like, because this actually marks the first Mortal Kombat game where we have full-on CG cinematic endings. Up until this point, Mortal Kombat games just had pictures and text. That's how every single ending went. Even the story, that's how it went too. But this is, I think, Midway really wants to flex is like computer animated muscles. So the intro was computer animated and the endings were computer animated. Now, the actual arcade version of these endings were trash. They were horrible. Completely horrible. But the home console versions of the endings were actually rendered a lot better. They still weren't good, but they were rendered a lot better. I'll say that. So, you know, the roster, I'm trying to think if there's any other characters that I might have forgotten. However, I will say that they did have a tie-in comic, which was a limited edition comic, which is like a prequel to Mortal Kombat 4. And then we actually got an updated patch, which is strictly for home console versions only. Mainly for the Sega Dreamcast, which is Mortal Kombat Gold. Mortal Kombat Gold is, of course, the updated version of Mortal Kombat 4, and it has some returning characters. Katana, Molina, Baraka, Kung Lao. Am I forgetting anyone? I think Noob Saibot might have been a returning character. There was also a hidden character kind of by the name of Meat that nobody cared about. Nobody cared about him at all.
I never even heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah, so Mortal Kombat Gold strictly came out just for the Dreamcast. And it was basically an updated port of Mortal Kombat 4. So Mortal Kombat Gold again, I had those returning characters come back. Again, there's a hidden character by the name of Meat that nobody cared about. There's supposed to be another hidden character by the name of Belloc, but they never finished him, so he was left out of the game. Goro returned in the home console versions of the game. I don't think it was in the arcade, but Goro returned. Oh yeah, Reptile was in the game too, but this is where we start to see Reptile's de-evolution, where he started to turn more like a lizard than his human-age form in like Mortal Kombat 2 and 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were it. Some of the endings were pretty hilarious. Mainly Jarek, Sonya's, and Jax's ending. Those are like the funniest ones out of the whole bunch. Reiko's ending was a mysterious one because it had him go through this portal and enter the throne room and put on Shao Kahn's helmet. Let's see. Liu Kang's ending was your traditional ending. You know, Raiden's ending, he becomes an elder god. You know, Fujin takes over the the protector god of Earth and things like that. You know, I have a little bit of a soft spot for Mortal Kombat 4, but it definitely wasn't the best in the installment. And a lot of people, and this is when a lot of people like really kind of like left the Mortal Kombat franchise. Like I think after 4, this is when people were like, okay, I think we're done now. Like that was pretty much it. Because even me, I was practically done after that too. I was pretty much done after that. So it wouldn't be until Well, actually, let me make that right. Mortal Kombat Gold came out in 1999, while Mortal Kombat 4 came out in 1997. So we waited a whole 2 years for an updated port for the Dreamcast. Now, ironically, the same year in 1997, we also got Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
I knew at one point. You know how like you go to a party and you're really hoping that a certain person doesn't show up. Yeah.
So
you mentioning that is like bringing somebody to the party that I hope would not show up, but we have to. I mean,
so we're going to talk about it. We're going to try to get through it as fast as we can, but we're going to talk about it. Mortal Kombat Annihilation is the sequel we waited 3 years to get, but didn't need. Again, Mortal Kombat, my mistake, 2 years. The 2 year sequel that we waited, 2 year sequel. Of course, it picks up right after the events of the Mortal Kombat 1 movie. This time, Outworld fighters got to deal with Shao Khan, who is now merging Outworld with Earth in order to destroy it. Just so many elements of this was so bad. It's hurting me to talk about this right now, but I got to talk about it. So let's start off with one thing. A lot of the actors didn't return. The only two people who returned for the movie was Robin Shaw for Liu Kang and Talisa Soto for Katana. Sonya was recasted with Sandra Hess. Johnny Cage was recasted with Chris Conrad, who dies in like the first 5 minutes of the movie. He dies. Raiden is recasted with James Remar, who I usually love. I love James Remar, but Raiden was not the role for him.
Right.
It really wasn't.
Well, he was. Well, he wasn't completely like Raiden, like all the way through.
Yeah.
No,
we had a wonderful debut. I think this is where everybody got to know Mr. Ray Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, this movie made a couple of stuntmen famous. Ray Park, Tony Jaa. Tony Jaa got famous from this.
Yes, indeed.
But
yes.
Aside from that, so those characters got recasted. We get Jax with the metal arms, played by Lynn Red Williams, who might have been the only comic relief in the movie, if you want to call it that. Basically, what happened with this movie, they mainly fused Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3 together, but it's definitely based more so on Mortal Kombat 3 than Mortal Kombat 2. With little elements of Mortal Kombat 4, because apparently Shinnok was in this movie too. The person who was Shao Kahn's father was apparently Shinnok.
Yeah.
And he looked nothing like Shinnok. So that didn't help. Brian Thompson portrayed Shao Kahn. You know, I'll give him a little bit of leeway because he did what he could with what he had to work with.
Yeah.
We were introduced to the Extermination Squad, Sindel, Rain, Ermac, Motaro, which I will say, Motaro was pretty impressive. I'll give them that.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be like we could say that a Mortal Kombat Annihilation is terrible all we want, and it was, but we got to give credit where credit was due. How they were able to pull off a centaur.
I will definitely give them that. I will give them credit for that. Shiva, who was Shiva. Like they didn't even bother to render actual arms for her. They just copy and pasted her actual arms to the lower part of her body. If you are brave enough to go back and watch it, watch the animation of her second arms. They are literally her regular arms. I guess they didn't have enough money for her arms, which is crazy because Mortal Kombat Annihilation was $10 million more than the actual Mortal Kombat movie.
We should do a watch along and just destroy it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll do like a viewing and we can completely go like Mystery Science Theater on that thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I think we will definitely do a live roasting of Mortal Kombat Annihilation at some point. We will definitely do that in the near future. So be on the lookout for that, folks.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Let's see, what other characters did we get introduced this? They had Cyrax, they had Cyber Cyrax, and they had Cyber Smoke, but not Sector for some ungodly reason. So they basically made Smoke into Sector. I don't know why. Sub-Zero and Scorpion return. Again, that was the only good fight in the movie between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. This, of course, was Scorpion's younger brother, Sub-Zero's younger brother, Kuai Liang, who was actually portrayed by Keith Cook, who actually portrayed Reptile in Mortal Kombat 1. So he came back and portrayed Sub-Zero in this movie. Nightwolf appears in this movie, but he doesn't fight. And they actually kind of got that casting right with Lightfoot being Nightwolf. They just didn't do anything with him, which was stupid. We got Molina in a fight scene with Sonya in mud, which was pointless. So they did nothing with her. Jade was Asian in the movie, which would have been forgivable if her character wasn't so whack. Yeah, just everything about this movie just didn't work. It was so bad. The CGI, oh good gravy, the CGI. Even the green screen was horrible. Nothing was blended. Yeah. Nothing was blended. And you gotta sit and wonder, we literally waited 2 years for this. Yeah. How Sway? How?
And it was directed and written, I believe, by like the same people too.
Paul W.S. Anderson didn't come back for this one. He didn't come back to direct it. Okay. So I forgot who directed it, but he didn't come back. I don't remember who wrote it either. But all I know is that everything that made the first Mortal Kombat movie good was not present here. Even the final fight with Shao Kahn, the animalities. Oh my God. I don't know what kind of dragon that was for Liu Kang, but I was like, no, this isn't a dragon.
That was ridiculous.
This is a Pokemon. This isn't a dragon. Like, I don't know how you call this a dragon. He's not serpentine or nothing. Like, and then Shao Kahn had an animality. He was a Hydra. I'm like, huh?
Oh man, that's funny.
Like, yeah, there was some weird CGI creature that just kept eating people, and like I don't know what that was about. They killed Rain early on. He didn't even fight. Shao Kahn just killed him.
Right.
Apparently,
I don't even remember him.
Huh?
I don't even remember him.
I'm like, what? Like, Ermac apparently has Noob Saibot living inside of him. Like, nobody used their powers, maybe except Shao Kahn and Raiden, but nobody else used their powers. Like, again, they were still sticking to that ideal for some reason. I don't know. Sonya gave some fake ass kiss of death by just blowing sand at Cyrax and didn't even burn up.
Yeah.
Like, he just got overheated. That was about it.
Right.
Oh my God! It was
the horrible lines too, like Lin-Red Williams when like they were supposed to have had a fight, and when in the next scene the fight was over already, and he said something finally went right, we won, and then dropped Jade, and I was like, well, could we have seen the fight scene?
Yeah. I'm like, this movie had a bigger budget than the first movie. Where did the money go? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where did the money go? Because like from the opening scene, the CGI was horrible. I'm like, who did you pay for this?
It went to all the fucking cameos throughout the movie.
Yeah. Like the Baraka fight with Liu Kang. I'm like, what? First of all, why are you wearing a long sleeve shirt? I don't understand this. And then two, that fight, and it was so bad. It's so bad.
The money that whatever that they spent, they should have spent on good effects for Baraka's arm, so they wouldn't have to put on a long sleeve shirt to hide the fact that they couldn't they couldn't do the effects right to make the blades come out of his arms like in the game.
Like
so they long shirted it.
The one thing I'll give Mortal Kombat Annihilation is the soundtrack. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
The soundtrack. That's it.
I actually had the Mortal Kombat Annihilation soundtrack, and it was actually a great fucking soundtrack.
Yes,
awesome soundtrack.
Yeah, that's.
I work out the face to face all the time.
From time to time, like to this day, like I still listen to some of the songs. From the soundtrack.
Yeah, I had the soundtrack too, but then I let my cousin borrow it, and then I don't know what he did with it, but. I really enjoyed the soundtrack. A lot of the songs, I think like 90% of the songs on there, I actually really enjoyed. I should probably go find them and download them. I got some of them, but I don't have all of them. But no. Aside from that, this movie was horrible, and we're gonna move on because the more we talk about this, the more depressing it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Now, the following year, in 1998, we actually got a live-action Mortal Kombat TV show in Mortal Kombat Conquest. Mortal Kombat Conquest.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, for Sun.
I guess it depended on where you live, because for me it came on I think like Saturday, either late morning or early afternoon or something.
For me, see, it's interesting because for me, it would come on after Monday Nitro. I remember that. Like, at least where I was at, it came on after Monday Nitro.
Yeah.
And then,
I was gonna say about that. So it's like, because first it was on syndication.
Yes.
And then like TNT like decided to pick it up.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
I thought it fucking mattered.
And then I do remember it would come on like late Saturday night at like 3 a.m. I'm like, for me, it would come on CBS. I'm like, why are you on this channel?
Yeah, exactly. Huh? That's where I saw it too. Like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, why? This is it, and actually, it was very watchable.
Yes.
I will definitely say this: Mortal Kombat Conquest was actually a really decent series.
It was.
If anything else came out of the live action iterations of Mortal Kombat, aside from the first movie, is Mortal Kombat Conquest. Now, Mortal Kombat Conquest, for those of you guys who don't know, was pretty much a prequel series to the main Mortal Kombat mythos. It's centered around the Great Kung Lao, played by Paolo Montalban, after he beat Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat tournament, and he basically spends pretty much the rest of the series training for the next tournament, or rather gathering people to help with the defending of Earth until the next Mortal Kombat tournament. For those of you guys who don't know, usually if you win the Mortal Kombat tournament, you're pretty much granted a stay of age for 10 years until the next tournament. So say if you enter the Mortal Kombat tournament at 37, if you win the tournament, the Elder Gods grant you basically a temporary immortality until the next tournament. So basically, if you keep winning, you just don't age. You just stay that age for however long you're the champion of Mortal Kombat. That's pretty much how that works. So
I'm gonna give you a Mortal Kombat Conquest memory. My first marriage, right? We went on a honeymoon. We went to Universal in Orlando, and we did a tour. And as we were riding, I was looking around and I saw a bunch of I was like, how like over at theme parks, you have like, characters walking around, actors and stuff like that. But there was something about this, like these guys were not walking around just being characters, and I didn't recognize any of them. And they looked like they were dressed up like, like fighters and warriors and everything. And I'm like, are they filming something here? And then the guy, who was doing the tour, mentioned that they were filming a series called Mortal Kombat Conquest. So technically I was there when they were doing it.
Nice. That's dope.
It was a great memory. Probably the only good memory that I have from that.
So essentially the series followed 3 characters: Kung Lao, of course, the great Kung Lao. A thief by the name of Tasha, played by Christina Loken. And then a guard by the name of Ciro, played by Daniel Bernhardt, I believe his name is Daniel Bernhardt, who is a badass, by the way. He's a legit badass. The story, as far as it goes, is like was kind of weak. The story was kind of weak. It was basically Kung Lao lamenting over the fact that he couldn't live a normal life anymore because he's a champion of Mortal Kombat, and he's trying to deal with it. Ciro was a cool guard, but he had an anger issue. Essentially, the voice of reason was Tasha. She was kind of the voice of reason out of the group, because she gave up the life of being a thief and just joined them. Raiden, who was portrayed by I'm forgetting his name, who portrayed Raiden, because he portrayed Raiden and Shao Khan in the series. This was also a series that actually showed us more of Shao Khan, which was actually, I thought, was interesting as well. I can't, what's the name of the dude who played Raiden? And I knew his name like Cole, hold on, I gotta look this up. But like I said, that guy, he played both Raiden and Shao Kahn. I liked his Raiden, but I loved his Shao Kahn. He was actually a pretty good menacing Shao Kahn. I got to give him credit for that.
Jeff Meek.
Yes, him, Jeffrey Meek. Yeah. Who ironically played Dracula on an episode of Hercules back in the day. I don't know how I stumbled upon that, but I was like, dude, you were Raiden. Why are you playing Dracula? What's going on here? So, but he played Raiden. It was kind of a play off the Raiden from the movie with Christopher Lambert, who was kind of snarky, sarcastic, but still kind of wise. But his Shao Kahn was definitely menacing. You believed him in Shao Kahn, so it was interesting that he played both roles. Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung, who was played by Bruce Locke, who was definitely a good runner-up to Kerry Tagawa as Shang Tsung. I definitely enjoyed his interpretation of Shang Tsung. We had a couple new characters. One, aside from Ciro and Tasha, we had a new character by the name of Vorpax, who also assisted Shang Tsung in his schemes. By this time, if you guys know the mythos, Shang Tsung, after his failing to beat Kung Lao in a Mortal Kombat tournament, was banished to the Cobalt Mines of Shao Kahn to atone for his failure. So basically, Shao Kahn didn't kill him. He just basically imprisoned him. And it's in the Cobalt Mines where Shang Tsung meets Goro. Eventually, later on down the line, he meets Goro there. But the vibe of the show, aside from it being martial arts related, was definitely more of a sexy type of vibe, because a lot of the girls that showed up in the show were very scantily clad. They lived in this place called Shushan, which was like a marketplace for all these different types of people. I could have sworn I seen the Dominatrix walking through there at one point though. But essentially, each episode was them dealing with different threats. Katana shows up. She was played by two different actors. I forgot what the actresses' names were. So Katana shows up. Molina actually shows up in the series too, which I thought was cool. Quan Chi makes in a couple of appearances in the series. With him his three women. I forgot to do who played Quan Chi, but he actually did a very good job as playing Quan Chi in the series. Scorpion, we kind of get like a pseudo origin of Scorpion in this. It's a different one from the main game continuity, so take that what you will. I guess we get an origin of Bihan Sub-Zero in this as well. Also, this is kind of where we get a little bit of a backstory, a little bit more of a backstory on the Lin Kuei, where previous backstories have mentioned that the Lin Kuei would kidnap kids from all across the world and train them to become assassins. So this was kind of the case for. Back in the backstory for Sub-Zero, back in the early games of Mortal Kombat, it was said that he was kidnapped by the Lin Kuei and trained to be, a ninja. Later on in the games, it was discovered that Sub-Zero comes from a family of cryomancers that were based out of Outworld. So that's why he has the ability to use, cold and stuff like that. Noob Saibot made an appearance in this series. A couple of different characters from the games appeared. You know, a couple of wrestlers from WCW were on the series. Brian Wrath Clark was on the show. Mang, who was known as Haku, he was on the show too. So I guess they had a deal with WCW or something like that. I don't know. But again, it only ran for one season. It ended on a cliffhanger, which was probably one of the best. Which was probably one of the best cliffhangers I've seen on a TV show at the time. Because it ended with a fight between Raiden and Shao Khan, and then Raiden ended up becoming Shao Kahn's prisoner, and it was believed that pretty much everyone had died. I believe Vorpax and her mother, Queen Kriya, were probably the early drafts for what will become Devora in Mortal Kombat X. I think that's kind of where they got that from. But for what it's worth, the series actually wasn't that bad. Like I actually after the first season ended, I actually waited for a while to see if there was going to be a season 2, because I figured season 2 was going to be in like the start of the next Mortal Kombat tournament, but we never got that. So, you know,
pretty good fight scene between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and a nice long meaty fight scene between Sub-Zero and Scorpion in that show.
Honestly speaking,
very, very good.
Honestly speaking, a lot of the fight scenes in the show were actually top notch. I was impressed at how good they were. I'm like, this is really good for TV fighting. You know, so, you know, it was I think, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time, but I think if it came out on a better time slot, it might have fared better. You know, coming on after wrestling, by the time people are done, you know, especially if you're flipping between WWE and WCW, you're pretty much done after that. And then coming on late night on a Saturday night, you know, people are going to be either doing something else or they're probably going to be asleep by then. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think Mortal Kombat Conquest was a victim of its time slot. So,
yeah, it's I think that was like during the time where like syndicated TV was kind of like dying down.
Yes, yeah.
So like there were a lot of shows that came out around that time where even though if they were really good, like around that same time, if not, I think that same year, they, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was when the Crow TV series came out.
That's right. Yes, with Mark Dacascos.
Right, and yeah, so I think it came out the same year because I think I remember watching Mortal Kombat Conquest and then switching to another channel to watch The Crow, and that was syndicated also, and it was a really cool show also, but it ended after, you know, like one season as well.
And like it came on at like a weird time because I would try to catch it, but I never knew what time it came on.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. Yeah, for me, like I said, it was like either like late morning or early afternoon on a Saturday. That they used to come on. But yeah, with Mortal Kombat Conquest, unfortunately, like I don't remember too much of it. I did see like every episode. I remember really enjoying the series. Like I know that there were some really good episodes. They did a good job, I think, like expanding like the lore and you know, like going over like certain characters, like backgrounds and stuff, especially like the different groups, like Lin Kuei, things like that. And you know, I also remember like the fight sequences were amazing.
Yeah.
And the casting was really good because, you know, we had Kristana Loken in the series, so this was like my initial exposure.
Mine too.
And, and then you had Daniel Bernhardt, who I had already been familiar with at that point because he was doing like a lot of B movies.
Oh, okay.
You know, he was also like in the later either Kickboxer or Bloodsport. I don't know, one of the Van Damme movies.
Bloodsport. It was Bloodsport because I did watch a Bloodsport movie with him in it, so I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. You know, and I always thought like he was like really cool, and to have him like in like a main role like this, you know, and you know, and then I just kept being a fan of this dude for years, even though like you normally just see him in movies like getting his ass whipped like by Keanu Reeves or Jason Statham.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
he's so cool though. I mean, yeah, he's so cool though. Ironically enough, they never put Conquest on DVD. Like they did overseas. So if you ever wanted like a copy of the Mortal Kombat Conquest series, you'd have to like order from overseas because they never released it here in America. I don't know why either, which is interesting. But I don't know. It was interesting. Moving on to the next thing. In 2002 we got another installment into like the Mortal Kombat, action adventure games and Mortal Kombat Special Forces. We are just gonna skip over that because that game was trash, and even Ed Boon acknowledges that game is horrible. So we're gonna skip over that.
I only played that game for I think I did like a mission or two, and that was that. I moved on.
I'll give you a brief synopsis. It's basically what you think it is. It's dealing with Jax and Sonya Blade, but it's mainly dealing with Jax trying to rescue Sonya Blade again, and you got to deal with the Black Dragon. So it's Kano's group. We did get introduced to Tremor in this game, so there's that. But aside from that, the game was horrible. I don't know anyone that ever owned it.
No.
So I never bothered to play it because I think around this time I wasn't really into any of the Mortal Kombat games, but it wasn't until 2002 where they kind of started to revive the franchise again, and we got Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance for the next-gen consoles on PlayStation 2.
Oh, yeah. That was a disappointing...
Yeah.
I mean, there was this thing that... read in a magazine. I believe it was I don't know if it was a GameStop magazine, but it was some video game magazine where it was said that if you opened up all the crypts, that you were able to play as like a zombie Liu Kang.
Lies.
And like a fool, I opened up all the crypts. No zombie Liu Kang.
I mean, I opened all the crypts because that's the kind of gamer I am. I like opening everything up, but this I mean, from the opening cinematic of the game, I was like, what the heck is going on? Because spoiler alert, they killed Liu Kang. They killed Liu Kang in the intro of the game. I'm like, what? You killed Liu Kang, the main guy of the series since the beginning, and you snap his neck in the intro? What is going on?
Liu Kang is dead.
I was like, you have got... And it was by Shang Tsung of all people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what?
After getting jumped by Shang Tsung and Quan Chi.
Yeah, Liu Kang was whipping his whole ass. Like, whipping him like he always does. And then Quan Chi comes out of nowhere. The concept, I thought, was pretty decent. Quan Chi and Shang Tsung teaming up together, but... it kind of went back to, like, the Mortal Kombat 1 roots. Everybody only had one fatality. The roster was kind of okay. The returning characters, we had Kung Lao, Katana, Sonya, Jax, Kano, Johnny Cage, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, of course, and Raiden, who looked cool in this game. I'll give you that. Raiden looked cool in this game. We had new characters in... Oh, yeah, we also had Scorpion and Sub-Zero. They also returned too. Sub-Zero was looking like a Clint Eastwood type of dude because he was older and stuff. And but we got introduced to new characters, and Li Mei, who was actually one of my favorite characters in the game. Li Mei, Mavado, trying to think who else was in this game. Li Mei, Mavado, Draman, Moloch, Nitara, the vampire. Nitara was introduced. Frost, who was pretty much a female Sub-Zero. So that was a pretty cool concept. I think that might have been it as far as new characters is concerned. The roster wasn't that big. It wasn't that big. Some of the unlockables were cool. I can never forget Cooking with Scorpion, which was the best unlockable in the game. So there's that. I really wish they had taken it further and given us a cooking show with Scorpion. I would have watched that religiously. Right. But we got extra costume stuff. This is where they started getting into like extra costumes and stuff like other video games did. But aside from that, yeah, it wasn't the best. It was a nice game. It was a nice way to like kind of restart the franchise, but it wasn't the best. There's of course Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, which came out in 2003. That's for the Game Boy Advance. So that's a port of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. In 2004, we got the best installment in the game in a new franchise, which is Mortal Kombat Deception, which I thought was brilliant. I enjoyed Mortal Kombat Deception. I mean, which is funny because when I got the game, I unlocked everything. I got everything, and then I ended up trading it in. I liked it, but I got bored with it. If that makes any sense. But
it does make a lot of sense. I was already bored with it.
Yeah. Like, and it incorporated a couple of different things too. In fact, both Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Mortal Kombat Deception definitely introduced the aspect of Mortal Kombat Conquest mode, which is kind of like the pseudo story mode for Mortal Kombat that doesn't deal with like the main character. In Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, it was just learning everybody's moves. So it was just pretty much like a super extended tutorial. That's what happened in Deadly Alliance. In Deception, you take on a new character by the name of Shujinko, and you follow his journey throughout the Mortal Kombat mythos. He was a sucky character. He completely sucked. The new big bad was the Dragon King, who used to be the Emperor of Outworld. I thought it was a cool character, but yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, we also had two hidden characters in Deadly Alliance in Mocap and Blaze, who will come back later on. Then we also got introduced to, and also Reptile was in the game, and Sector. Sector was in the game also in Deadly Alliance, and Reptile. And Kenshi. Oh my God, how can I forget Kenshi, who turned out to be the fan favorite in the new games of Mortal Kombat, because he was basically Keanu Reeves blindfolded and with a sword. And he had telekinesis, so Kenshi was definitely one of the popular new characters in the game. In Mortal Kombat Deception, we saw a lot of the characters return. Noob Saibot and Smoke, they became Noob Smoke, which was cool. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, who had a shredder outfit, which was dope. Jade, Noob Saibot, Jade, Sindel, Tanya, who else? Nightwolf, Liu Kang returned. Zombie Liu Kang returned at that. Raiden went dark, so that was a cool thing to see a dark Raiden. Shujinko, of course, was a new character. Li Mei returned. Darius, Dairu, Hotaru. There were actually a lot of interesting characters in Mortal Kombat Deception. And a lot of the concepts that were in it were cool. They introduced, I believe we had motor combat. No, I believe it was chess combat and puzzle combat was introduced in Mortal Kombat Deception. I could be wrong, but it was definitely puzzle combat, which was like Super Puzzle Fighter 2, and then chess combat, which is, of course, chess. The opening cinematic to Mortal Kombat Deception is balls to the walls, the best one. It is fantastic. It has Raiden going up against Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, and then the Dragon King returns. I go back every once in a while just to go watch that. I thought it was great. But again, like, once you get everything in that game, it just becomes boring. Some of the fatalities were cool. I will say that. Like, the only fatality I liked in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance was Sub-Zero's fatality, but that was pretty much it. But the fatalities in Mortal Kombat Deception were a lot better. Li Mei's fatality was great. Then again, she was just awesome all around. We had there's a couple of elements from Deception that I thought were pretty interesting, but they introduced a new concept called Harakiri, where you get to kill yourself. I thought that was interesting. Some of the alternate costumes were cool. Like I said, Sub-Zero had a whole shredder thing happening. I thought that was dope. Everybody was on that, so that was cool. Again, Zombie Liu Kang. Then we had like Spirit Liu Kang. We had Dark Raiden. Then we had Dark Samurai Raiden, which was awesome. So yeah, aside from that, the game was okay. But if you traded it in, I didn't blame you, because once you got everything, that was pretty much it. There was nothing else to do. There's of course like a handheld port called Mortal Kombat Unchained for Game Boy Advance. So there's that. In 2005, we got one of the best action adventure Mortal Kombat games in Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. That game is the greatest action adventure game for Mortal Kombat, and I want them to do a part 2. If not a part 2, give us an HD remake, like something. So Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is basically a retelling of Mortal Kombat 2. Really, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It picks up at the end of Mortal Kombat 1, but again, another fantastic cinematic intro. Great. But it basically puts, again, of course, the main characters are Liu Kang and Kung Lao, and it puts them pretty much in all the events of Mortal Kombat 2. A lot of the narratives get changed. A lot of the story continuity is changed, but for the most part, the game is fantastic. All the power-ups and, skills you can acquire, and a lot of fatalities you can do were great. Liu Kang's fatality of Shaolin Soccer is fantastic. Every character that was in Mortal Kombat 2 was pretty much there. Even Kano, you got to fight him. You got to free Jax. Cabal makes an appearance in the game too, but he's not scarred up. The fight with Scorpion is one of the best fights in the game because you gotta fight him like 3 times. You gotta fight like regular Scorpion, then you gotta fight Angry Scorpion. Like you gotta fight regular Scorpion, Unmasked Scorpion, and then Inferno Scorpion.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then when he dies, he does the whole T2 thumb going into the hot multiverse, which was just a perfect touch. A perfect touch. There's some comedic moments too, like right when you beat Goro, instead of you finishing him off, Johnny Cage steps in, hits him with a shadow kick, and he dies, and then he just walks off mad cool. That was funny. The game itself is good, like especially just the gameplay itself. Like I definitely chose Kung Lao every time because the multiple dive kicks into the combo were just fantastic. And then even the final boss fight with Shang Tsung, Kintaro, and Shao Khan, who was a pain in the ass. You thought he was bad in Mortal Kombat 2? Wait till you fight him in Shaolin Monks. But
wow.
No, Shaolin Monks came out at the right time. It was one of the best games. In fact, I played it with Andy when I got it. So like we just whooped that game's ass. It was so much fun to play. I really would like an HD remake or at least a part 2. Like give us a part 2. Give us the events of between Mortal Kombat 2 up to Mortal Kombat 3. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, actually, I do remember you purchasing Shaolin Monks. Yep. I never got to play it with you, but I do remember you and Andy, like playing that game together, and I did see a bit of it, and I was like, wow, this is actually like a cool game. And I actually did end up purchasing it eventually around that time. It was when it was its greatest hits version.
Yes, yeah.
But if you want to know something funny, last year was the first time I actually played the game.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I kind of played it on a whim. And I played through it. I even streamed it. And, of course, I enjoyed the game. Like I thought it was a really cool, really fun game, and probably like to me, I think like the only good side Mortal Kombat game. But I think also like during that era of Mortal Kombat games, like to me that was like the only good one.
Yeah, it really was because like again, Deadly Alliance was a good way to bring us kind of back into the fold. Deception was a good way to kind of keep our attention, but Shaolin Monks was the game. Like, and the thing is, I wasn't even. You know what? I think I bought it on a whim too. I wasn't planning on getting the game, but I was like, I felt like I needed a new game for PS2, so I think it was on like, it wasn't even that expensive too. I think I bought it when like it was still cheap, so I bought that, and then I was like, you know what? Let's see what this game's about because I've seen a couple of commercials for it, and I was like, I'll see what it's playing. So then we started playing, and I'm like, oh my god, this game is amazing. Like it's like more than anything, it's just really fun to play.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like it's really fun to play. So out of all the action adventure games for Mortal Kombat, Shaolin Monks is definitely top tier. If you haven't played it, definitely go check it out. If you're still fortunate to have a PS2, go do that.
One of the greatest consoles ever made.
Yeah. We would get basically our final installment into the new trilogy of Mortal Kombat games in 2006 with Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Now, Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which is essentially Mortal Kombat Trilogy Part 2. That's what I call it. is essentially Mortal Kombat Trilogy 2 because it has all the characters from Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Deception and a couple throwbacks from the ones that weren't there. So Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, who got turned into a Minotaur for some stupid reason, and even Shao Khan and the Dragon King. And then, of course, this is the culmination. The story for itself is pretty good. Even the Conquest mode is actually really good, too. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Conquest mode for Armageddon was actually pretty decent. They introduced the creative character concept, which I thought was kind of limited. But it was okay because I was out here making Superman. I was making Goku. I was making Akuma. Shoot, I made the Great Saiyan Man at one point. I made a Power Ranger. I was making everybody in Conquest mode. I made my own Creative Fighter. I made my own ninjas. I was doing all of that. But other than that, the game, it's fun to play. But like one thing I will say, like, if you're not good at doing fatalities, this is the game for you. If you don't care about fatalities, this is the game for you. Because I just normally skip doing fatalities because it was this creative fatality bit, which I understand why they did it, but it was still whack. Yeah. So because everybody pretty much did the same thing, so that was kind of lame. But again, another game with a fantastic opening intro, showing everybody fighting on the battlefield, then the pyramid rising up and having to go up against Blaze and all this stuff. So I thought that was pretty good. It was okay. It was okay. I only held on to that game until the next one came out. But Armageddon was pretty alright. I understood what they were trying to do. I think they were kind of trying to wrap everything up, pretty much in a nice little bow, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. With these like trilogy of Mortal Kombats, like I just at the end of the day I didn't really care too much for them. Like I did play each one for a bit. Deadly Alliance to me was like whatever. Deception was like a better Deadly Alliance.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then you had Armageddon, and there were certain elements that I thought was kind of cool, like when they introduced like Conquest mode. Like I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah.
Not really awesomely executed, but it could have been something cool. But with Armageddon, I feel like the best elements of Armageddon is everything that isn't the fighting itself.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah, because in this one, I think the story mode, the Conquest mode was much more improved. I think you had like a better character.
Yeah.
And better story. But then also you had you had the puzzle combat, the chess combat. You even had like combat racing. That
was fun. Yeah, combat racing was fun.
Yeah, that was probably like the thing that I easily did the most in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Like when it came to the fighting, like I didn't give a shit. Like especially with because to me they essentially got rid of fatalities. Like doing the creative fatality like was fucking stupid and limiting, and it kind of took like all the individuality away from these characters.
Like even think about the character endings in the games. Those were kind of lackluster too. It was just them doing a content and then just dialogue. That was it. So definitely like elements like the Conquest mode, which I actually had a lot of fun playing, like the Mortal Kombat, all the other side games and stuff, the creative fighters and stuff. Those were all pretty cool. But aside from that, Armageddon wasn't all that great. It really wasn't. And I think a lot of the fans knew it. But interestingly enough, and we're almost done, guys. I know we've been going for like 2 hours now, but we're almost coming to the tail end of this review.
Hey, Mortal Kombat it's like that, y'all. It's a massive franchise that has spanned generations, and I mean it's literally a world unto its own. So it takes a little while to cover it, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, we're like trying to fit like 30 years of history into
essentially.
Man.
If anything, I feel like we're making good time.
Yeah, I think so. Because we still got to cover the new trilogy and then a couple of other in between things. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about a game that no one expected to come, and kind of really didn't deliver. That's Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe.
Oh yeah, that was the thing.
I remember, I think, seeing the trailer for it, and I'm like, at the time I wasn't getting any gaming magazines, so I had no idea about this. So I remember seeing the trailer for this. I'm like, what the hell is this? Why is Batman getting ready to fight Sub-Zero? What is this about? So then I jumped on the old interwebs and I decided to look it up. And of course, Midway, teamed up with DC and decided to put out their first crossover game. Mind you, this was years after we already had X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, Marvel versus Capcom 2. Let's see. What other crossover games were there?
Shit, I think we even had Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Yes, we had that. We had a couple of crossover games for actually, but yeah, definitely
Capcom.
Yeah. So so basically Capcom had the big jump on the crossover genre back in the day. So and it all started with X-Men versus Street Fighter. So Josh, you said MK versus DC felt sluggish. It did. It was very sluggish. It really was. So basically, premise of Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe is a multiverse game, Elseworld story, basically. So the crisis called the World Merge Crisis, where Superman in his universe beats Darkseid, and then Raiden in his universe beats Shao Khan. They end up merging together to become quote unquote Dark Khan.
Dark Khan.
Dark Khan, and that character design was lame. Dark Khan was lame. I'm sorry, Dark Khan looked lame. He was really lame. So the heroes on the DC universe and the fighters from the Mortal Kombat universe are slipping in and out of universes, and they're coming into each other's worlds. And then there's this thing called the Combat Rage, which is causing everybody to fight. And it culminates in one big battle between the DC universe and the Mortal Kombat universe. The only two people left, and this is story mode stuff, by the way. The only two people who are left standing are Raiden, and if you picked the Mortal Kombat side, it was Raiden. If you picked the DC side, it was Superman, and you had to take down Dark Khan. The characters for the Mortal Kombat side were, of course, Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Kano, Sonya, Raiden, of course, Shang Tsung. Was that it? I feel like that might have been it. Am I forgetting anyone? Yeah, Liu Kang, Katana. Yeah, Liu Kang, Katana, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Sonya, Jax, Kano, Shang Tsung, and Raiden. Is that it?
That sounds about right. Because you also have to keep in mind that you still have a whole other roster of DC characters.
So for the DC side, we had Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Shazam, Lex Luthor, Catwoman, the Joker, Deathstroke, Green Lantern. I feel like I'm missing somebody else.
The Flash.
The Flash, right? The Flash, and no, wait a second, damn. So was it 9 and 9?
I think so. Yeah.
Deathstroke? Wasn't Deathstroke in it?
Yeah, Deathstroke was in it. Why do I feel like I'm leaving somebody out? Oh, Mortal Kombat side had Baraka also. It was Baraka, and then for the DC side, blasted. Damn. All right, yeah, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker, Catwoman, Lex Luthor, Deathstroke, Green Lantern, Shazam. Who the hell am I missing?
That could have been all of them.
I think I got everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and now I gotta look this up again. Holy crap.
No problem. Yeah, we'll look it up.
But yeah, so the the one thing that I thought was cool about this game was the story. Like how they did the story mode, I thought was like really really cool, and I guess like it was at least enough of a success that we started seeing that same type of story mode for like the rest of the Mortal Kombat story games going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm kind of glad that that was like the one thing that they continued with, because I really did enjoy the story.
Yeah. It was so yeah. Shao Khan and Darkseid, respectively, those were the extra characters. So that's what I was missing.
Yeah.
I will say though that again, like Josh said, the gameplay was a bit sluggish. This game was panned for the lack of, first of all, it didn't have a teen rating. It was a teen rating. It didn't have a mature rating, so it was definitely, the violence in this game was definitely toned down. That means the fatalities were very lackluster. All the Mortal Kombat characters had fatalities, and all the superheroes had heroic brutalities, all of which all sucked. Really, the only saving grace, the only good thing about this game was the story mode itself. Like, I think it was interesting, and it was definitely a precursor into the later Mortal Kombat games that we would actually get. Not only that, but the DC games that we would get after, like Injustice and Injustice 2.
Yeah, same thing, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe is definitely a precursor to all those things. I will say though, I did enjoy some of the character endings in Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. I liked Liu Kang becoming like a Shazam character in the Mortal Kombat universe. Jax eventually became Cyborg in the Mortal Kombat universe. Sub-Zero became like a Batman type of character in the Mortal Kombat universe. I thought that ending was dope. I liked that one.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Because he had a whole cape and everything, and I'm a sucker for a cape. So I thought that was good. Some of the DC characters endings. Catwoman became like a full cat. Lex Luthor teamed up with Quan Chi. I thought that was interesting. Superman decided to incorporate magic, elements into his suit. I think that might have been it. Joker becomes mayor. Joker becomes he pretty much turns into the Quan Chi of the DC universe. I thought it was cool. I thought those elements were interesting, but again, I traded that in for the very next game that was coming out. So we're coming down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming down to it. Let me just go back to my list here. Make sure we didn't miss anything else. There was a prequel comic book for Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, which I thought was okay. It came with the game, so there's that to consider. But we did get a little gem in 2008 also. Filmmaker Kevin Tancheron decided to try his hand at Mortal Kombat and gave us a short little 8-minute film on YouTube called Mortal Kombat Rebirth. And this was essentially a real life take on the Mortal Kombat mythos. And the casting was actually very well done. You had Michael Jai White, who was Captain Jax Briggs, who was a police captain. Jerry Ryan, who was Sonya Blade, I think still lieutenant. Ian Anthony Dale was Scorpion. I forgot the guy who they got to play Shang Tsung, even though he showed up as a picture in the series. But Matt Mullins was Johnny Cage. Lateef Crowder was a twisted version of Baraka, who was a failed surgeon who went mad, who filed his teeth down to fangs and surgically implanted like scalpels into his wrist. He was awesome. Reptile was this guy who had Harley Quinn ichneosis, who should have died at childbirth but ended up living to the age of 32, and he was eating people. So the premise is that this everything takes place in a place called Deacon City. Crime is going crazy, so Jackson Briggs pretty much has Scorpion sitting down in the interrogation room, trying to get him to work with them so they can take down Shang Tsung. And the way he goes into doing that is by telling him that Sub-Zero is alive. We got a quick picture of Sub-Zero. But those 8 minutes kind of sparked everybody's interest in another Mortal Kombat movie. That's what that did.
Sure did.
The fight between Matt Mullins, Johnny Cage, and Lateef Crowder as Baraka is an insane fight. It is awesome. It is fantastic. I actually haven't watched that in a minute. I should probably go back and watch it again because it was really dope. But this started a campaign for Kevin Tantron started a campaign to hopefully try to produce another Mortal Kombat movie. Which brings us into again the new trilogy, which is the NetherRealm trilogy of Mortal Kombat games, starting off with Mortal Kombat 9, essentially, or Mortal Kombat 2011, which is basically a retelling of the first three Mortal Kombat games. So it's essentially a retelling of Mortal Kombat trilogy. Again, taking elements from the story mode from Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe, they gave us an expansive story mode where we got to play as certain characters. Premise of this is that it picks up pretty much right after the end of Armageddon. Shao Khan wins. And he claims the power of Blaze for himself, and he's beating the hell out of Raiden. So Raiden decides to send a message to himself in the past, letting him know that this is what happens in this timeline. The past self has to change it. So it's a lot of things. It's pretty much things still play out like they do, but with a few changes. Kung Lao enters the first tournament. Nightwolf is there. A couple of things happen throughout the story mode. Smoke gets turned into a cyborg instead of Sub-Zero. Kung Lao still dies. No, Kung Lao dies in the second tournament as opposed to the third tournament. Sindel comes back and whoops everybody's ass. Like straight up, she straight murks everyone. Like basically Jade, Katana, Jax, Nightwolf sacrifices himself to kill her, but Cabal, like she murks everybody in this game. It was bloody fantastic. Liu Kang is growing disillusioned with Raiden because Raiden keeps having these premonitions, and every time he turns around, he fucks something else up. It leads into a confrontation that we didn't know we needed, but we glad we got. Liu Kang versus Raiden. We got that confrontation, and Raiden kills him by accident, which leads to Raiden being the only one left that has to beat Shao Khan, because he has to let Shao Khan merge with Earthrealm, and the Elder Gods empower him, and Shao Khan is essentially killed. Like in previous games, he just comes back, but in this instance, Shao Kahn is absolutely killed.
Right.
This was a great game. This was a nice rehashing and a nice rebirth for Mortal Kombat. I still love the game to this day. The fatalities are still fantastic. Everybody still has two. The gameplay is pretty top notch. It definitely took what it did with Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe and improved on it a buttload. It improved on it a great deal. Again, the story mode is the best aspect of the game, but the gameplay itself is actually pretty good. The latter endings are pretty awesome. I think the best one is Liu Kang's, where he becomes a fire god, which was practically a premonition to a later game, but we're going to get into that in a few. But no, the game itself was pretty good. We also got, this was the first time we got some guest characters into the game. Quan Chi is a guest character in the game. He makes a return. We also got introduced to a character who should have existed before the end of Realm of Scarlet. Freddy Krueger is a guest character in the game. And for the PlayStation 3 version specifically, Kratos from God of War was also a playable character in the game too. So that was interesting. But game to play. Also, we got another new character in Cyber Sub-Zero, which is awesome. All right, HP, no problem. So that was pretty good. That was cool. Again, overall, the game itself was pretty decent. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. So this game was like really important in like so many fucking ways. It was the return of Mortal Kombat, going like back to basics, going back to the original trilogy, and it and also kind of just like Mortal Kombat Trilogy did way back when. It was like it was once again like a leveler for like all the Mortal Kombat fans that fucking stuck with all the bullshit up to like up to this point, and just made it like into like a really rewarding experience. But what was also really significant about this Mortal Kombat was that this was around the time when fighting games were like coming back.
Yes.
You know, we had Street Fighter, make its return, and we started having like other fighting games like making a comeback. So, Mortal Kombat, like came out like during this time, and also what was really big during this time was fighting game tournaments like Evo
Mm-hmm.
and shit.
Yep.
So when they were designing Mortal Kombat, they wanted this game to be like a tournament playable fighter, and they definitely accomplished that.
Yeah. Like
And
it. Mm-hmm.
and then other than that, like the game was like great all around. I think this was like the first Mortal Kombat game that I actually owned myself.
Mm.
And the only gripe that I had with the game was with the gameplay of the story mode, because for some reason during the story mode you had a lot of fights where it was like you versus like two people,
Yeah.
which I thought was like really dumb. Like they could have given you another person or not have so many of those type of fights.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That was like my only gripe.
That might have been them trying to pad the runtime, probably, but
Yeah.
once you get to it one time, you're pretty good. Once you get to the story mode one time, you're pretty good. If you want to go back and play it on hard, you can. I believe, what is it, the Challenge Tower? I think there was that. That was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That which is, some matches were pretty easy. Some of the tasks were pretty interesting. I think there was one where I think I had to fight Shao Khan like 3 times. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Because they made him just as cheap as he was in Mortal Kombat 2. Like, I don't know how they pulled that off. But that challenge tower was in. There was 300 challenges that you had to do. And the reward, I think the reward was worth it. You get like a bandaged up Molina, which I thought was pretty great. So the reward was worth it. So there's that. They actually allowed 2-on-2 combat, which I thought was pretty good. And it was none of the fluff like the previous games did. Like, so like no like unlocking of crypts and things like that. None of that stuff was there. It's automatically there. Is that somebody's phone ringing?
No. I don't know who that is. Oh.
I think one of the other elements, and in fact one of the other details I enjoyed was like just a remixing of all the classic songs from the stages in the first Mortal Kombat games, and the fact that you have the option of going back to the original music from the stages in the games too. A lot of the stage fatalities were cool. Like, it was cool seeing the pit in that version. A lot of the elements about Mortal Kombat 9 were very well done. I really enjoyed it a great deal. I mean, I agree with some of the fights were kind of unnecessary in the story mode, but other than that, I thought it was really good. It told a great story. I know a lot of people like to shit on the stories of the new Mortal Kombat games. I don't know why. To me, I think they're actually pretty decent. I mean, Mortal Kombat 9 is pretty much a retelling of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games with just different elements. That's all. All right, HB, you back? Cool. So I don't know. I mean, you got a lot of nitpickers with anything. So, but and then of course there was a complete edition, Mortal Kombat complete edition, which came out later on in 2011, which pretty much had everything unlocked. So this is when I started to learn my lesson on never buying the game outright. But again, of course, I still didn't learn my lesson. I still bought the games outright, even though there was like an updated port coming later on. But what are you gonna do? So interestingly enough, later on that year, we actually got a web series for Mortal Kombat from Machinima called Mortal Kombat Legacy. While Kevin Tangeron wasn't able to produce a movie as of yet, he was able to produce a YouTube series that kind of retold different elements from the Mortal Kombat mythos. I feel like the second season was better, but I do like a lot of elements from the first season. Each episode was kind of centered around a character, so there was that. I think the first few episodes dealt with Jax and Sonya and Jax. So it dealt with that. Michael Jai White came back as Jax, of course. Jerry Ryan came back as Sonya Blade. The guy's name is Darren Chevali. Who played Kano. He played a pretty decent Kano too. He unfortunately passed away also a couple of years back too. I forgot how he passed away, but he passed away also. Matt Mullins returned as Johnny Cage. I forgot the person. I forgot the person who played Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, but they were pretty good. Ian Anthony Dale came back as Scorpion, which was awesome. And then I forgot the guy who they got to play Raiden, but again, it was kind of like almost still kind of real life takes on these characters, but a little bit of the Mortal Kombat mythos mixed into it. My favorite episode from season 1 is still the Cyrax and Sector episode. I love that episode so much, especially the fight in that, especially the end fight between them and Cyborg Hydro. That is my favorite fight.
Excellent.
And I love that fight so much. That not only the fight, but the music with it too. I really want that music for that episode. But that episode to me was one of the best ones in season 1. That was one of the best. Season 2 did us a super solid by casting Mark Dacascos as Kung Lao. That was the greatest.
Yes.
That was the greatest. He didn't have his bladed hat, but he still had a hat. They brought this one was centered more around the tournament, of course. So they did some recasting. They brought they brought Casper Van Dien as Johnny Cage, who actually did a pretty decent job. I'm not gonna lie, he did a pretty decent job as Johnny Cage.
That was not a bad casting at all.
Yeah. I forgot who they got to play Raiden, but they got an Asian actor to play Raiden this time. I forgot who they got to play Liu Kang. Kerry Tagawa came back as Shang Tsung. That was dope. I thought that was good too. They did a solid on that. Season 2, season 2 was definitely the better season because almost some I'd say half of the episodes were definitely fight episodes. So you had Stryker versus might have been Reptile. I don't remember. There was that episode between where Kenshi battled Ermac. That was a cool episode. That was a cool fight episode. The episode between Scorpion and Sub-Zero was great, and that ended with a fatality. The Scorpion between Katana and Molina, that ended in a fatality. And I like the fact that Kerry Tagawa would say fatality at the end of each episode. Season 2 was awesome. It really was.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it a lot. And then the series actually ended up with a cliffhanger because a previous episode showed what happened with Liu Kang after the tournament and how he kind of got disillusioned after his girl got killed. Him and Kung Lao had some interactions and stuff, and the series ended off with a possible fight between Liu Kang and Kung Lao, but unfortunately the series got canceled, so we never got a third season after that, which kind of sucked. But I don't know. Which makes us jump into 2015 with the next game, which is Mortal Kombat X. Mortal Kombat X was essentially a retelling of Mortal Kombat 4. If I'm going to be honest with you, it was essentially a retelling of Mortal Kombat 4 with just better graphics, more characters, and a time jump. So basically, the story mode, which I thought was a pretty good story mode too, starts off with practically the end of Mortal Kombat 4, where Johnny Cage beats. And I appreciate the fact that they kind of tried to make Johnny Cage the main character now, which is also always pretty good because Johnny Cage is pretty much the outside character. He's our eyes into the Mortal Kombat universe. So Johnny Cage kind of he beat Shinnok because at this point, who can't beat Shinnok? Like, come on now. Shinnok as a character kind of sucks. The concept of him is cool, but the character together sucks. So we time jump and we get introduced to pretty much the combat kids. We get introduced to Cassie Cage, who is the daughter of Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage. They have a kid. Jackie Briggs, who is the daughter of Jax. Kung Jin, who is the cousin of Kung Lao. and Takahashi Takeda, who is the son of Kenshi. The style of this game definitely take a different turn from what we got in Mortal Kombat 9. It felt a lot more polished, a lot more cinematic. You could definitely tell in the story mode with it. This actually was a really decent game. I still have it. So I actually enjoyed it a great deal. I thought Mortal Kombat X was actually pretty well done. A lot of the elements in the game were pretty cool. Like the introduction of a new generation of combatants, I thought was actually a pretty good idea, and it's a pretty good move for them to make. Again, people still have issues with the story. This did have a prequel comic book series called Blood Ties. I actually have the entire comic book series on my shelf. It was actually a pretty good read. So it gives some backstory as to what happened prior to the events of Mortal Kombat, for Mortal Kombat X. I thought it was pretty good. Then, of course, we had Mortal Kombat XL, which is the expansion of Mortal Kombat X. And we have a lot of guest characters in this game. Between, if I can even remember them all, Leatherface, Predator, Xenomorph, Jason, who else was a guest character? Bo Raicho returns. I'm trying to think who else returned in this. Bo Raicho became a returning character. There was a lot of guest characters in it, but the fact that we had Predator and Alien in the same game, we got to live out our Alien versus Predator fantasy. That was always fun. That was a fun little thing to deal with. Leatherface versus Jason was cool. I enjoyed that a great deal. I kind of like if that was the case, they could have brought in Freddy in this, so we could have Freddy versus Jason another round. They did, and this was also around the time where the mobile game was starting to take off. The Mortal Kombat mobile game. They didn't do it during Mortal Kombat 9, but when Mortal Kombat X was released, they also released a Mortal Kombat mobile game, which I actually played for a little bit. This is kind of where some of the controversy comes in, because some of the unlockables for the game, for the main game, for the console version, can only come through if you have the mobile game too. So you kind of had to pull double duty. I thought that was kind of lame. I didn't like that idea. I like having my unlockables become unlocked in the console version. There's still costumes right now. There's still skins right now for characters that I don't have yet on the console version of Mortal Kombat X. And I thought that was pretty dumb. But aside from that, Mortal Kombat X is still a pretty decent game. They did a lot with it. The challenge towers were also pretty good. The voice acting in this game was actually top notch. I enjoyed it a great deal. And the story mode itself was actually pretty good too. Scorpion getting his revenge. Well, Scorpion and Sub-Zero making amends was actually one of the dopest scenes in the game. I enjoyed that a great deal. Then Scorpion getting his revenge on Quan Chi was actually really dope also. They do a lot of flashbacks and stuff too, so that was pretty good. But Mortal Kombat XL didn't come out until 2016, so like a year after it came out. And then of course we got the latest game in the Mortal Kombat installment, which is Mortal Kombat 11, which is pretty much a culmination or the finale of the new Mortal Kombat trilogy. So basically they kind of step forward and step back with the story in this. Here, of course, like I said, Mortal Kombat X is basically essentially Mortal Kombat 4 expanded. That's pretty much all it is. A lot of the characters who died in Mortal Kombat 9 are revenants in Mortal Kombat X, so that's good. Mortal Kombat X ends off with a post-credit scene that shows Raiden going dark and warning Emperor Liu Kang and Emperor Katana, who rule the Netherrealm now, warning them to not mess with Earth after cutting off Shinnok's head. So Mortal Kombat 11 pretty much starts right where that game ends up, with Raiden, who turns dark, killing or decapitating Shinnok. And we are introduced to the new big bad in Kronika, who I will have to say, maybe not the best boss for a Mortal Kombat game. Wasn't all that great, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think this gold standard as far as Mortal Kombat bosses is still Shao Khan. He's still the one. But Chronica, the concept of Chronica, I thought was interesting. I thought that she's a Titan and she's the keeper of time. So basically, after the Netherrealm raid by Earthrealm Special Forces, I mean, this before, Cassie becomes commander of the Special Forces. They go into the Netherrealm to try to stop, Liu Kang and Katana once and for all. Sonya dies. Sonya is killed in like the first few minutes of the story mode campaign. And then, of course, after a while, time is reversed. So characters from Mortal Kombat 2 are essentially brought into the main continuity. So we have young Johnny Cage, young Jax, young Sonya, undead Liu Kang. Well, like basically living Liu Kang, living Kung Lao, living Katana, living Jade, and good Raiden. He returns. So I thought the story itself is actually pretty good. I dug it. I would have changed a few elements. And of course, we got a couple expansions. We got Mortal Kombat Aftermath, which again has Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa reprising his role as Shang Tsung, and then they also bring in Nightwolf and Fujin, who are also DLC characters. They brought them into the main storyline, and that is a true ending to the Mortal Kombat 11 story. The regular ending has Liu Kang becoming a fire god, which was a dope scene also. He beats Chronica, but then Mortal Kombat Aftermath ends the way the game started between Liu Kang and Shang Tsung. So I thought that game was actually really good. Then the latest update, which is Mortal Kombat Ultimate, which gives us a whole bunch. We have a whole bunch of guest characters. Molina returns. Rain returns. There's a couple of the Shang Tsung, Sindel, Shiva. A lot of old combat characters return. Then we got some guest characters in RoboCop, the Terminator, Rambo. Am I missing anybody else? Spawn, who is fantastic in this game. Spawn is fantastic in Mortal Kombat. This is the game he belongs in. He was a guest character in Soul Calibur 2 for the Xbox version, but Mortal Kombat is the game that Spawn belongs in. It's as simple as that. Overall, the gameplay, I think, is better. It definitely borrows a lot of elements from Injustice 2, as far as like, extra content, as well as like different skins for your characters. So definitely borrow elements from that. So there's that.
I mean, I think we might have discussed this before, but as far as like guest characters, and I don't know if I think I might have told you this story before. I was working at the airport, and I happened to be speaking to someone who was one of the developers on Mortal Kombat. He had like this Mortal Kombat golf shirt, like Threshold Entertainment official golf shirt. And I asked him. I said, do you work for Threshold or anything to do with Mortal Kombat? He was like, yeah, because I was one of the developers. And I said, oh, so we got into like a little conversation. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, could you please tell me what is Negan doing in Tekken? And I said, don't you think that Negan would have been a much better suited for Mortal Kombat?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because seriously, Jen, Brian Fury, none of those guys would have allowed themselves to be in an eeny, meeny, miny, mo situation.
Nope.
They would have. Brian Fury would have took Lucille and shoved it up his.
Yeah. While we're on the subject, who aside from Negan, who else do you think would have been a good guest character for the Mortal Kombat franchise?
Oh my goodness. Pinhead?
Pinhead would have been interesting.
Yeah. I'm thinking like, Pinhead versus Quan Chi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If anything, they
that
might
rocks.
Be friends.
Yeah.
Because
I think about a lot of the characters that we had show up in the game, and it's like, and I used to have a lot of guest characters who I thought would fit in perfectly with Mortal Kombat. I mean, I know a lot of people talked about Ash Williams being the guest character in Mortal Kombat 11. I think he should definitely be one. Ash Williams would be perfect in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Like from the Evil Dead, he would definitely be a good character to be thrown.
Oh hell yeah! And one of his moves would be like, "This is my boomstick." Boom.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That'd been perfect. I'm trying to think of other characters who might have. I think there's a lot of characters that lends themselves to be good Mortal Kombat guest characters.
Like I would like to see like more characters from like Image Comics, like, you know, because Spawn was definitely a character like I wanted to see there since they started doing the guest characters, and he did get in there. Now I would also like to see like Savage Dragon.
Yes. I mean,
Savage Dragon needs some love, man.
Yes, he does.
Mortal Kombat definitely lends itself to definitely taking from some of the comic book characters and stuff and throwing them into the game. Spawn would have been a good one. I think the Crow might have been an interesting one.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
the Crow would have been, actually thinking about it now, the Crow would have been a good one.
Oh, Crow! Oh, perfect.
I had a list actually of who I thought would have been good. Like, I think Neo would have been good. Neo would have been an interesting one to throw in Mortal Kombat.
Oh wow! Oh holy crap! Yeah.
If not Neo, then maybe John Wick.
Thank you. There you go. That's on.
John Wick would have been good. I mean, we already got Fujin. I'm glad he returned. Ra's al Ghul would have been an interesting one too.
Holy crap.
Could you imagine could you imagine a dialogue between Ra's al Ghul and Shang Tsung?
Mm-hmm.
These are two characters that tend to live very long lives through supernatural means. That would have been interesting. And I think what would have been an interesting, like a completely out of the blue guest character would have been Ryu from Street Fighter.
That would catch everybody off guard.
I think that would blow up the internet. I think if Ed Boon somehow managed to strike a deal with Capcom to just get Ryu for Mortal Kombat, that would have set the world on fire.
Yeah, just Ryu. Just
him. Just him. No Akuma, no Ken. Him. Just him.
Yeah. It would like it would be so insane. Like, it would just blow everyone's minds away that if let's say, there's a Mortal Kombat coming out, they announce, the additional characters that they're going to release, and then all of a sudden you find out like one is like Ryu, or like just really any Street Fighter character, because it like that alone can open up like the door of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Yep. That would have get, because that definitely would have had people talking like, dude, do you think we're gonna get a Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter finally? That would have been a good way to set that up. Like,
yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, he's still gonna be dropping a lot of content for Mortal Kombat 11, because from what I understand, he's not thinking about any other Mortal Kombats anytime soon. So I definitely think he's gonna keep cranking out content for this version of the game. So
yeah,
I don't know what's gonna be coming next. Hopefully more characters. I mean, once the movie drops, I imagine there's gonna be some movie skins for the characters. I imagine that maybe Cole Young will probably be a DLC character for the game. I don't know. Maybe they'll introduce him into the game or something like that. But I don't know.
I think it would be like, because I think that's the thing now is with fighting games is now to try to support the one game over a course of years instead of making either sequels or updates to the game. Like, you look at Street Fighter V, like Street Fighter V came out like a long ass time ago.
Yeah.
And that shit is still getting like, updated and all that. And before with the Mortal Kombat, they were when they came back, we were having like a new Mortal Kombat, I think like every like 2 or 3 years. Like, just in between, like they would come out with a new Mortal Kombat, then they would come out with an Injustice, and then we have a new Mortal Kombat, then another Injustice.
Yeah.
But I think because of now, like how expensive and technical like games are now, it's like it's not really feasible to like keep trying to keep that up.
No, it's not. It's really not. So, like I said, I mean, if Ed Boon is working, if NetherRealm Studios is working on another game, I don't know what it is, but I definitely feel like they're just going to be spending a lot of time cranking out different content for Mortal Kombat 11. I'll be interested to see what they do or what's going to come out next for it, because he hasn't made any announcements yet whether it's going to be another Mortal Kombat game or another Injustice. I imagine we'll probably get an Injustice 3 at some point. I imagine that, just to tie everything up. Right. So, that leads us into the last piece of content for our Mortal Kombat review, and that's, of course, the first full-fledged animated movie in Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge. That dropped early last year, I think, right in the height of the quarantine. It dropped. I bought it. I bought it on Amazon Prime Video, and I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. They definitely really leaned in and embraced the violence of Mortal Kombat in this. You know, we got some X-ray scenes, like the X-ray moves and stuff. We got some of those. It was definitely very gory and very bloody. I thought the voice acting was good, but essentially, Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge was essentially a retelling of Mortal Kombat 1. That's essentially what it is. And for a movie that's supposed to be about Scorpion's revenge, they didn't really center the movie around Scorpion too much. If there's a criticism I have for the movie, is that it didn't really center around Scorpion too much. Yes, the opening scene started with him and his clan and his wife and son getting killed. But aside from that, it just follows everything else. I think what would have made the story more compelling would be if we gotten like a look into Scorpion's childhood, like Hanzo Asashi's childhood. Let's see what his childhood was like when he becomes a part of the Shirai Ryu, as he grows up to become the best ninja in the clan. And then leading up into his family being killed by the Lin Kuei and him being killed and sent to the Netherrealm and then becoming Scorpion. I think that would have been a better movie, but for what it's worth, I thought the movie was pretty decent, but I think that's what they should have done. That's the story elements that they should have used for Scorpion's Revenge. Like, go into his backstory and everything. That would have made the most sense.
Yeah, so actually, I haven't seen the movie yet. I think I'm actually going to see it this week because I heard they recently added it on HBO Max.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
so I think I'm gonna check it out.
Okay, cool.
Now, the animation, I think I might have mentioned this before, but as I was watching it, I mean, the animation, the style of the animation, I swear, I kid you not, I was kind of expecting like Batman to show up or like Superman. That's what it looked like. It looked like a DC.
It did.
It did.
I mean, you got to figure the same people who worked on a lot of those DC movies made this one too. It's still Warner Brothers. But I did find the animation to be a little janky at times, like a little bit, especially with the knuckle design. The knuckle design is gnarly in this movie. It really is. But this movie was pretty decent. If you were gonna watch it just for like the violence of it all, you're definitely gonna be in for a treat. It's gonna be good. Like I said, I think story wise, I think if it's supposed to be Scorpion's Revenge, it should have really focused on Scorpion completely. It really should have just did that. But,
I agree.
I mean, EJ, I think you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it for a great deal. I don't know if they're gonna do another one. I don't know if they're gonna be like, if they're gonna do a Mortal Kombat Legends, or something like that, because it ends up with Shao Khan showing up too and all that stuff. So, but I don't know. Again, it's just another retelling of the Mortal Kombat 1 tournament like they've done before. So, But overall, the Mortal Kombat franchise it's had some misses, it's had some hits, but it's been pretty consistent with itself. I'll say that. It's been pretty consistent between the games, some of the failed cartoons, the comic books and stuff. even some of the one shots that they did, Mortal Kombat Rebirth and Mortal Kombat Legacy, it still holds true to its source material. So I can't knock it for that. The reboot movie drops this Friday. So I am still very much excited for it. I can't wait to see how this thing turns out.
A lot of good buzz. A lot of good buzz on it.
I'm not expecting Shakespeare. I mean, if we're just going to be, I'm not expecting Shakespeare. I'm just expecting a movie that's based off a game that honors its source material to as much as it can and gives us what we just want. To see people just kill each other. That's what we just want to see.
we just want to see some Mortal Kombat action.
Something
that translates well on the screen, but yet still hits home to all the game fans.
Exactly. The 95 movie still hits. It still hits pretty well. Let me not disparage it. It still hits pretty well. It still holds up. The 95 movie still holds up, but I really want to see what this new movie is going to do.
Yeah, honestly, like from what I've seen and heard from this movie, like I'm getting some vibes from that original Mortal Kombat movie, because what made that Mortal Kombat movie really work at the end of the day, aside from the fight sequences, was that they gave a shit about the story and lore of Mortal Kombat. So this seems to where they follow that, where they do give a shit about the lore of Mortal Kombat. It doesn't seem like we're gonna go all deep into Mortal Kombat, which is fine. It's they're kind of setting up for shit.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that we get to explore Sub-Zero and Scorpion in the meanwhile. And we get fucking brutal violence and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so I feel like it's everything that for as much as we like the original movie, we're getting that and everything we wanted to see in that.
Right.
We wanted to see the violence, and we wanted to see more Scorpion and Sub-Zero.
Yep. Yes, indeed. So
very true.
And all that being said, guys, it is after midnight.
Yep.
We made pretty good time. Going through the entire franchise. We did pretty good.
This was amazing.
This was definitely amazing. So
30 years fucking
history. There's a lot of games in here technically 11 games. We're talking about 11 main games here. Tekken only has 7. Right. Street Fighter technically has 5, but there's been so many updated versions of different games that it's we've lost count. How many Street Fighter 2s are there? It's 20. There's 20 Street Fighter 2s.
Exactly. You got Turbo, Super, Championship Edition,
Hyper Fighting, the World Warrior.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many Street Fighter 2s that, if you remember, just a few years ago, they made Ultra Street Fighter 2 for Switch.
Yep, I remember.
They won't stop making Street Fighter 2.
They really won't let Street Fighter 2 die. They really won't. We've gotten Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, Ultra Street Fighter 4. We got Street Fighter 3, New Generation Street Fighter 3, Second Impact. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is still my favorite. I love Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I love it.
Yes.
Again, Street Fighter 5, which I guess hasn't really done much. I mean, they just keep updating itself, so there's that.
Yeah.
X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, Marvel versus Capcom, Tatsunoko versus Capcom, Marvel versus Capcom 3, Namco X Capcom, come on,
oh right, yeah,
Capcom just they know how to get that Street Fighter money. They know how to get it. Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which was,
yeah,
that's a topic for another day. But Street Fighter Cross Tekken was, I had high hopes, and
I heard none too good things about it.
No.
Like it was an okay game in itself. It's just there's like what kind of bugged me about the game was I could never just pick a fucking character and just play. Like for some
Yeah.
reason you had to like pick extra little things, and it's like why?
It was definitely bogged down with a lot of elements that weren't really necessary. Like that
Oh, yeah.
whole gem system was pointless.
Oh my god, yeah, yeah. It's just and it's they overcomplicated things for like no reason. Like
Yeah.
all you have to do, like you have Street Fighter characters going up against Tekken characters. That's it.
That's all you need.
You didn't have to do anything else. You could have just done that and call it a day. But nope, they were like, what other dumbass shit can we do?
Yeah.
Right.
Essentially, yeah. I'm still waiting for Tekken Cross Street Fighter. I'm still waiting for that, but who knows? Who knows if we're gonna get that at this point?
From our closest to that was the fact that we got Akuma.
Literally, that's.
Yeah.
I said like this is probably as close as we're gonna get. This is it.
Mm.
This is it. Because really, all you really need is Akuma. That's it. But you know, I don't know. I don't know. But you know, aside from that, you know, we'll see what happens after this Friday when the movie drops. Mortal Kombat. Again, we're gonna be hosting a live watch party here on Twitch. So if you want to be a part of that, let us know. Even if you just want to be in the comment section just to talk with us, that's cool too. I'm gonna be making sure I work out the kinks this week before we get it done. I guess we're gonna do it Friday night. Is that what we want to do it?
Well,
or do we want to wait until Saturday?
We could do that. I mean, we could do Saturday because I'm actually going to be going to New York to go see it. I'm going to be going to the AMC in Times Square with my crew on from my show, The X Zone, and we're going to do like a straight out the theater little review, and then we're going to do a fuller review on The X Zone later on. So I guess I'm going to be reviewing Mortal Kombat quite a bit. So
yeah, so what we'll probably do is knowing me and Tani, we'll probably watch it Friday night. So Saturday we'll probably do the watch party for everybody else, and we'll get everybody else's thoughts that hasn't watched it yet. That's probably what we'll do. Yeah. So so we'll check Instagram for when the timing for it is gonna be, when we're gonna do it. So, and if you're on Twitch, definitely be sure to follow us. I mean, I guess we can kind of wrap this up. We're pretty much done with our review. Overall, I give the Mortal Kombat franchise a solid 7. That's what I'll say. The first 3 games were great. The second 3 games kind of hit and miss. The last 3 games, pretty decent. Yeah. Mortal Kombat 1995 still holds up. Annihilation is trash. Conquest was pretty decent. I wish they had gotten a season 2. Defenders of the Realm, I can see why it lasted only 1 season. Mortal Kombat Rebirth was great. Mortal Kombat Legacy was an awesome series. I just wish they had continued it. Yeah. Don't play Mythology Sub-Zero. Do not play that. If you're going to play anything, play Shaolin Monks. Go play that. Don't worry about Special Forces. It doesn't need your attention. It really doesn't. And if you can find, because I see a lot of people have emulators and stuff, so if you can find emulators for like Trilogy, do that. I enjoyed Trilogy a great deal. It was one of my favorite games. You could probably check the PlayStation Network. You could probably still get, or the check your gaming networks. You could probably still get the HD collection of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and Ultimate MK3. Things like that. So, I gave it a solid 7. What about you guys?
So, with Mortal Kombat, I'm not really that good at like rating things like that. But just to kind of like give some thoughts is that from like the 30 years of content, like not just from like just games, like even side games, but the fact that we're talking about animated stuff and live action stuff, it kind of just shows, the like how Mortal Kombat can be used in like all these different mediums.
Yeah.
And it can be translated extremely well as long as you have people who give a shit about the product, and which it can be done. We've seen it done. And but unfortunately from time to time it gets used as a cash grab as well.
Yeah.
But the fact that after like 30 years of Mortal Kombat, we're still talking about the games. We're still getting animated stuff. We're hype about a Mortal Kombat movie like coming out this week. Like it really shows the power and longevity of this franchise.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely agreed.
And I think, sorry, I just have to say one more thing. And I think the fact that like we had this resurgence in Mortal Kombat, like just really also shows like how strong like us like the fan base are like for Mortal Kombat. Whereas like as long as you give us something great, like we'll come back.
Agreed. Yep.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
I don't really either. It's like I was into Mortal Kombat when it was first coming out, but at the same time, I was also becoming a teenage girl. So I went through a phase of about 20 good years where I wasn't even playing video games anymore. I took my younger family members to an arcade or something. So I really did not get back into playing Mortal Kombat again until I met Ken. Probably with Mortal Kombat 10. So.
I will
welcome back.
Yep. I will say, I will give Mortal Kombat credit. It definitely has a way of drawing people back in. I'll give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Because you can go years without thinking about Mortal Kombat, but then like something will just spark in the back of your head is like, you know what? I haven't played in a while. Some MK. Let me see what's popping with this. And then you go back and play, and it's like, yeah, I missed this.
Well, I did notice. If I could just step back to Mortal Kombat, Deadly Alliance. The one thing that game that I was impressed with, was yes, the different switching of styles that you were able to do. And that right there, it showed me, and also looking back from the beginning to now, and what is really just now dawning on me, is that, what Mortal Kombat also does? I mean, aside from the crazy violence and everything, over the top, and everything just being very entertaining, at its core, at its heart, it really shows a deep love for martial arts.
Correct.
It shows a love for martial arts. If it's the kind of thing that would like a kid would play it, or anybody would play any of the games, that would actually kind of make them want to study. So hey, so what made you want to get into martial arts? Mortal Kombat.
Between Mortal Kombat and Tekken, and Tekken, those are definitely the ones that definitely, and even Street Fighter to a degree, they prop up different disciplines of martial arts a great deal, and that's probably why we go back to those games so much, because they do. But before we shut this thing down, I will say this: if there's another property I wanted Mortal Kombat to cross over with, aside from DC, because I think the storytelling now, they could probably do another DC Universe crossover if they really wrote the right story. And it's funny because years ago I did a pitch for like a Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe 2. I'll probably link that in this video right here. But I think if there's another property I would love for them to cross over, it'd probably be WWE. I don't know why.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I would love for them to cross over with WWE for some reason. Like, I have this idea in my head of, I don't know, Shao Khan trying to recruit some of the people from the WWE universe to fight in the tournament or something. I don't know why, but and you know where it really came from. There was a mobile game that came out for WWE called Immortals, and NetherRealm made that.
Oh, right.
That's kind of where I got it from. So I got it from that because it wasn't like they were just like regular wrestlers. Like The Rock had like a rock body and stuff like that. John Cena was like a super centurion or something like that. You know, Kane was an actual demon, things like that. So that's kind of where it got it from. So like I know there'd have to be like, you know, you look at characters like The Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, again, Kane, you know, John Cena, who's supposed to be like super invincible, things like that. Like, if there is a way for them to work WWE into a crossover, I'd love to see that. I think I would love to see that. Aside from a Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat, I think it's time now. Like at this point, I think it's time that we get a Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter. Like you said, EJ, it's been 30 years. Yeah. Like they both been out for just as long as each other have. Like it's about that time.
Yeah, I think and for a while, because like I kind of understand the argument over like maybe like why a Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat will be, because you know Mortal Kombat has fatalities.
Yeah.
Street Fighter kind of doesn't. But but they do have one property that I feel like they can cross over with another property just fine, and that's doing like a Marvel versus DC game.
Yeah.
Like
right.
Yeah.
I think it's about time for that too. I definitely feel that. It like, I mean, I know it's time for a Mortal Kombat versus Street, but it's definitely time for a DC versus Marvel game. Definitely time for that.
Yeah, and I think what would have been really cool is that, like, each company, like, if Capcom was in on this, like, each company could make, like, their own version of the game where we have DC versus Marvel, which will play like Injustice, and we have Marvel versus DC, which would play like a Marvel versus Capcom.
Yep. And knowing me, I'd get them both.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'd get them both.
And then,
like,
and I would imagine that, like, in the Capcom-made game, you would probably still have, like, some Capcom characters, like, thrown in as special guests.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, you know, whatever WB or movie characters that come into the other one.
Yeah.
Imagine having Spawn, like, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Like, it's time, man. These people need to get on it. I don't know what they're doing, but they need to. They just with DC killing it in the animated universe and the MCU just killing it in movies. Like, I think it like the amount of downloadable content alone for both games would be insane.
Yeah.
Between different costumes, different versions of characters and stuff. I don't know. I need to call somebody because this is ridiculous. They out here missing money. Like, I don't know what's going on. There's like little money they could be cashing in them. But aside from that, folks, we're gonna cut it. We're gonna end it off now. 3 hours and 30 minutes. This is pretty good. This is a long one, and we just coming back. This is our second show back, so this was pretty good. I don't think I'll be segmenting this live stream, because it would probably be, each section will probably be like 20 minutes long. But you know, maybe I'll try to do some timestamps or something like that, so you can just jump to a certain game in a certain part of the Mortal Kombat franchise. But I don't think we're gonna break this one up. Highlights from our last live stream should be uploading now. It should be premiering now, so you feel free to go check that out. But I want to thank EJ for coming through on today's podcast. Yeah. Dude, if you ever want to come back, let me know. It's cool having you come through on the show. Again,
you having me here. It's always fun chatting with you about geek stuff.
Yeah. I don't think we decided on what the next podcast was going to be about, but maybe it might be time to do our ranking of the MCU movies.
Oh shit, that undertaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what huh?
What about the top 10 for each person?
What I think what me and EJ talked about like was doing it by phases. So do we?
I was thinking like we do not that we rank each one by the phases, but that we would have to probably do like we could make each like separate podcasts and have them be like phase 1, phase 2. So we'd have to like split them up. I think.
So we'll figure out the logistics of that. So we'll so once we figure that out, we'll organize that or something. So I know Kim had an idea for another show. I guess it was about like survival horror.
Oh, like survival horror games.
I think what it was she proposed how we each would think how we would fare in a survival horror scenario, like say like the zombie apocalypse or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
That might be the next show. So we'll talk with Kim during the week and try to organize that. So EJ, if you want in on that,
love that. I would love that.
I would die in the beginning. I don't have the stamina for that.
I mean, goodness. I mean, so we're talking about like all whatever horror survival horror game. I mean, because I'm still in the middle of Alien Isolation. So
I think what we'll probably do is we'll do like different scenarios. So like say like one scenario will be the zombie apocalypse, or one scenario will be like something akin to aliens, like you're on a ship and there's aliens around, like dangerous like extraterrestrials or something. Like maybe we'll deal with like the unstoppable killer who just won't stay down or something like that. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
So I'll we'll talk to Kim. I'll try to put that together. And we'll just talk about how we would handle each scenario, because I'll tell you right now, just as a preview, as far as the zombie apocalypse is concerned, I only need 5 people around me. That's it. I don't need like a whole group. I don't need I don't need no Walking Dead type scenario. As long as it's just 5 people, and we all know how to handle our shit, we should be okay.
Yeah.
And like no big establishment either. No like big shopping mall or some mess like in Dawn of the Dead that things can like easily get into. Like some small joint that we can easily protect. I don't know, something like that.
That is.
Like it would have to be something high up, like in the mountains. Like
yes.
Like it would be hard for zombies to go up.
For instance, like a quiet place. Why would you not build some place to live by the waterfall where you can be loud? Why would you not do that?
Exactly.
Right.
Like, I don't know. We'll discuss that. That'll be our next show, guys. Watch it. That'll be our next show. Okay, so
because you're building it up. You're building it up already. I'm getting excited.
Yes. So that'll be next week's show. So we will catch you guys again next Sunday. We probably won't be on for this long because this was a long one. I know. I mean, it's after midnight and we got to get ready for the next day. But that'll be our topic for next week. Again, follow us on all the platforms in the description box: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, where you can keep the conversation going in there. Am I forgetting anything else? I think that might be it. I think that's it. You can follow each of us and all that stuff. I'll get EJ's Twitch so you can follow him there as he streams gameplay. So he'll be in the description box also. And then we'll just go from there. So until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the highlights from the last show that'll be posted up. And again, the audio for this will be up hopefully during the week. I'll try to get it up on Wednesday when I'm here, when I'm not in the building at work. So we will catch you guys next Sunday. We are out.
All right, later.
Peace.
You were watching Council of the Blurs, a geekcast. The council has spoken. End transmission. You were watching Council of the Blurs, a geekcast. The council has spoken. End transmission. You were watching Council of the Blurs, a geekcast. The council has spoken. End transmission. You were watching Council of the Blurs, a Geekcast. The council has spoken. End transmission. You were watching Council of the Blurs, a Geekcast.